How are you, lads? Welcome to another episode of Irish Success Podcast, and we're starting to get some big fish into this podcast. So we have a Shane Fleming here, who is running a YouTube channel. He's a property investor, and we're going to ask him a lot of important questions about the property, about the upcoming recession, about the World Economic Forum, because this guy has knowledge. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a Friday. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
I thank you, because I tell you, I was actually waiting for this one because I have been following your YouTube channel for a long time. I know all of your shit. Right, so let's start with you telling us something about yourself. But before that, I promised myself that every time we have a guest, I'm going to try to get them a little bit tipsy. Right? Because that's when the real shit comes out. And I want to provide you with as much shit as I can. So that's what I'm going to do.
So what have you on offer?
Look, you could get all types of whiskey, but I'm always about promoting local entrepreneurs. I will use the proper 12, McGregor's shit. I love that guy. I don't mind drinking his shit. You know what I mean?
I'm living in New York most of the time at the moment, and it's crazy how many people give me a bottle of Proper 12, Americans who are coming over to the apartment or saying hi or saying thanks for something. The amount of them that give me a bottle of Proper 12.
Yeah, it's becoming
he's promoting the hell out of it, and
he doesn't pay me for it, but I'll do it for him because I respect him.
I think I've got more bottles of Proper 12 than anything else lying in the apartment.
Hold on,
but if anyone else is watching or listening to this in the future, it's Redbreast 12-year-old.
Sorry, I just have to get a few. I have to drink this with a dash of Coke.
Okay, I'm okay with it straight.
You're okay like that? You're
okay.
A proper Irish man. I like that. Listen to this guy. He's already killing it. Right. Hold on. Let me just get the. All right. Right, so let's kick it off. So tell us a few words about yourself. How did you start? Do you have businesses? Do you have property? What do you do? We need to let people know who you are, what you do, and then we're going to get into all the knowledge.
Yeah, I suppose... First off, thanks for having me, as I said. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And I kind of feel like a little bit of an imposter right now in terms of the name of this podcast, in terms of it, Irish Success Podcast. I feel like right this second, I've taken a number of steps back to hopefully take a few leaps forward. Yeah. And I'm in that process of kind of rebuilding my own brand, rebuilding what I do, and going in a kind of slightly different direction. But I suppose in terms of what I've done all my life, or nearly all my life, or half my life, is I've been involved in real estate. I've been involved in real estate nearly close to 20 years if I include my college. I did a degree in property economics, went off and worked for Tesco for a number of years. What
did you do for Tesco?
I was involved in acquisitions, I was involved in rent reviews. At the time they had about 17 shopping centres and they had about 300 tenants, so there was lots of rent reviews there. There was also asset management of a lot of their shopping centres were getting a bit old and tired, and they were looking to knock some of them down and rebuild some of these shopping centres. So there was a huge learning curve coming straight out of college in regards to acquisitions of land, redevelopment of huge shopping centres, and dealing with some of the biggest landlords and development companies in the country at the time. Mm-hmm. So it was huge, great exposure for me to come straight out of college.
Great experience as well. Imagine getting that job straight out of college. Jesus.
Yeah, I think nearly everyone I was in college with went and worked for like the likes of CBRE, Jones Lang and Savills. Nothing wrong with any of those companies, but they all became agents, or most of them became agents, and they didn't really get to see the property world the way I did. I saw it from finding a site, building something and getting it all the way up to tenants being in it. And that was a huge experience for me straight out of college that I don't think many of my peers got. And it taught me so much more about the business world, because it wasn't just about property. I had to go to board meetings every few weeks, submit proposals on what we were doing on some of these sites, how we were designing them. And as a young 20-year-old sitting in front of the Tesco board asking for millions to do these things, you like, one, it gives you a little bit of confidence, but like that you're able to it builds balls. Like, and they really did throw me into the deep end. And I think like from anyone coming out of college or coming out of school, like if you can get that experience or work for someone who allows you that freedom to go off and do your own things, it's such a great learning experience. But I was really thrown in the deep end at the very start. I was like, here's your projects, here's your deadlines, here's your computer. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing here. But they were like, figure it out. And yeah, I got a few months to figure it out, and realistically that was a great experience because I smashed it in the end. Yeah, like, and I smashed my first project, and then you got on to other bigger projects, and it was great. I did 3-4 years there, and then I saw the recession coming. I saw that we were overpaying for certain sites. I started getting into arguments with some of my colleagues going, this is way too much for these sites. We shouldn't be paying for this. Started kind of seeing the writing on the wall in terms of what was actually happening globally. And at the time I was...
That was before the first recession? Before the 2008?
Yeah, because at the time it was quite clear that we were only bidding against ourselves. So when you see that you're the only people bidding on some of these sites, you go, well, why are we spending $1 million an acre or whatever it was when no one else is looking to do this? And it was quite clear that the market had gone crazy or gone, and you're looking at other deals and deals just weren't stacking up. You go, how are people paying 20% more than what they should be worth? I myself at the time was lucky enough and unlucky enough perhaps to be granted a pretty big loan from a bank to go off on my own and set up on my own. I didn't luckily do that.
But that was the thing. The banks used to just throw money at you. How much did they offer you?
I had like a line of about 5 million.
They gave him 5 million?
No, I didn't have the 5 million. But if I found the right deal... On the
basis of what?
If I found the right deal. On the basis that I had experience of 3-4 years working from acquisitions all the way through delivering sites and all the way through to tenants being in it. They were like, well, if you want to do this on your own, here's a line of 5 million if you wanted to go off and do it on your own. I was 3 years out of college. That's a ridiculous situation to be in, in that regards. But it was happening. I went off, and luckily enough, I ran my numbers. I always run my numbers when I'm looking at these deals, and I looked at hundreds of deals. I bid on some deals. Luckily enough, I never won any of those because the numbers stopped stacking up, and I was like, there's something wrong with the market. People are bidding way too much, and eventually the market crashed, and it crashed in America, and then it crashed here, but
badly,
very badly.
Yeah.
But it was a great insight in terms of one, I suppose, how do you time the market? And a lot of people go, well, how do you time the top and the bottom of the market? And when I look back at that period in my at that time, I thought to myself, going, Jesus, I was extremely lucky I didn't draw any of that money down, because if I had drawn that money down, I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be in Australia because I would have had 5 million in debt, and I would have gone, see you later, I'm not paying this off, and I would have left.
In my businesses, I did with people like that all the time. They did what you were saying.
And I look back and I go, God, I was very lucky that I didn't draw that down. But when I look at it in more detail and I understand property more and more, it wasn't anything to do with luck. It had everything to do with analysing the deal and knowledge. Yeah. And I saw the deals weren't stacking up. They weren't making the criteria that I felt they could make, or they weren't meeting my criteria, and therefore I decided they're not the deal I'm going to go for. I'm not bidding beyond a certain point. I always had it before it went to a bidding process that this is my number. I'm not going above that number. And every single time I went above that number by 20%. And that was shocking to me. But looking back now, the fundamental reason is you have to have, you find out what your criteria is, find out what makes the deal work for you. Everyone's going to be a little bit different in terms of what it works for you or what level of risk you're going to take. And then if you can get the deal out on those terms and at that level, great, it works for you, go ahead and do it. But that's about knowing your numbers, and it's not about timing the market, because every time the market will change all the time.
So how did you start your property journey then? When did you start it? What year?
I started in college, 2001, Tesco 2005. Worked for IBRC, the amalgamated bank with Anglo, for a few years. Learned a lot there in terms of what not to do and what not to buy. And I worked for Jones Lang, JLL, for about 3 odd years. So I got a lot of professional experience working there.
All big names.
All big names. And I got to work with like Blackstone and some big REITs and a lot of big investment funds.
Is Blackstone related to BlackRock? No.
Blackstone and BlackRock, they're totally different companies. Blackstone would be slightly smaller than, well, not slightly smaller. It's a good bit smaller, but still would be in the billions, if not trillions, in terms of what they invest. But they're not as big as what BlackRock would be.
Because we're going to get into that.
Yeah, so
relating to that.
I got to understand that side of the market, how they operate, how they raise funds, and how they deploy their funds in terms of they raise equity first, and then they use that equity to get large loans from international banks. So they might raise 300 million from equity from individuals who might have 5-10 million to spare, put it in a fund for 5 to 10 years, they don't see it again, and then BlackRock or Blackstone or whoever or any of these funds, they then go, well, we've got 300 million. They go talk to an international bank and they say, what line of credit will you give us on this? And they go, well, we'll give you 700 million at 1% interest. And they go, right. Then they'll turn around to the JLLs of the world or whatever and go, we've got $1 billion to spend and we want to allocate 500 million to Ireland, 500 million to the UK, whatever way they decide to split up that fund. And that's generally set up at the very start. And you get to experience and see that when you're working for those type of companies.
Those are some big numbers.
But that's their small. That's where they'll start. Like their funds, most of their funds now, like I think BlackRock raised something like 44 billion last year alone from equity. So if they've raised that in cash, like that's cash that they have sitting there to invest in real estate. And that means they can probably leverage that up if they want to. So they can go around to a bank, fair enough, interest rates have gone up a little bit more, but they can go to a bank and probably get something at 1.5% or 2%. And I go, okay, well, we'll give you 70% on top of that. So they might have close to $1 trillion there to invest in real estate over the next year, and they have to deploy this. They can't just sit on it and wait. They'll have told all the investors what they've raised. Go, well, we'll give you a 5% or 10% return on this per year. We'll lock it away for 7 to 10 years. So you're not going to see it anymore, but in 10 years time, you'll get your 5 million or your 10 million back or your 100 million, whatever that family office or family investment fund decided to put into these funds. And it's a totally different level of investment and real estate than what we see on YouTube, because no one talks about this.
No, that's why I have it here. And now that's why I want to move to the questions where we're going to provide value to people. You know, I have a couple of questions. I have them written down here, but I also have them in my head. So I'm going to start with one of them, which is the most important one. You know, is this a right time to buy a gaff? I mean, everybody says, yeah, this is the right time, this is not the right time, the recession, this, that, I don't think it's a good time, but I want to know from somebody like you, because I'm a total rookie in this type of game, but you're not. So tell us, is this a right time to buy a house, family house? And then after that, tell us, is this a right time to invest? Because the interest rates are going up, and the Klaus Schwab said you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So my thinking is that they'll make sure that the interest rates go up and they'll be taking the gaffs off people.
Yeah, I suppose it's a hard and an easy question to answer. One, people will say the easy way to answer this question is if you're ready to buy a house and it's your family home and you are looking to stay in that home for the next 10 to 15 or 20 years, why not buy it? Why not buy it now? If you need somewhere to live, why not buy it?
Well, I can answer that very quickly. Why not?
Okay.
I have a good argument.
Okay, so if your argument is then if you boil down and go, well, prices are going to go down or might fall by 40%, I think you have to look at that and go, okay, well, let's run the numbers on that. Okay, let's look at when the major crash happened.
People have to run numbers on
so
it, they don't know.
But even, okay, so let's just say you if you're talking about investment properties, it's a little bit of a different question. But if you're just talking about buying a house, you have to live somewhere. Mm-hmm. So unless you're living with your parents and you're going to stay there for a few years, you have to live somewhere and you have to pay rent. So there's a cost to living somewhere. So right now, if you're talking like trying to find anywhere decent in Dublin, you might be talking $2,000 or more to rent somewhere in Dublin for a year. That's like 24 grand a year in rent. Is the property you're looking to buy going to drop by 24 grand a year every year for the next 5 years if you decide to wait? Because if you decide to wait and hope for a crash, realistically what you're waiting for is you're waiting 5 years. It took 5 years for the market to get to the bottom the last time. If a major crash happens again, it will likely take that time again for it to hit the
Sorry,
bottom.
how much? Could you repeat how much did it take?
It took 5 years for for it to hit the market.
Yeah, because it gradually goes
It
down.
gradually goes down. It rarely falls, even when a market falls. It rarely falls by more than 10% a year. So if you're looking at an average house at 300k, a 10% drop is 30 grand or 30 odd grand that it might drop per year for 4 or 5 years, and then it starts to go back up again. But you have to go, okay, well, is that drop worth me risking that drop? Because right now there's no guarantee that drop will actually happen. But if you go in and you go, well, I'm going to risk this and I'm going to wait for this to actually happen, you're going to have to pay rent. So your risk is paying rent for the next 5 years, waiting for that to happen. You pay, say, the guts of, I don't know, over 5 years, are you paying the guts of 200 grand, or you're paying 150 worth of rent that's gone, that could have been used to pay a mortgage, even if the property value does fall. And you're left with a decision in 5 years' time going, okay, my gamble didn't pay off and property prices haven't fallen by 50%. They haven't fallen at all. I've wasted those 5 years of not paying a mortgage down. I've also wasted 5 years of renting, and I've wasted 5 years of now I'm 5 years older and I could have borrowed on a 30-year mortgage, but I'm 5 years older now and they'll only give me 25 years, or maybe you're slightly older again and they'll only give you 20 years of a mortgage, which impacts your affordability on that mortgage and it impacts how much you can borrow. So there's multiple layers to that decision if you decide to wait.
You put it a brilliant way. So basically, if somebody wants to buy a house, the thing to do now is probably, if you're gonna live in it, just probably get it. You know what I mean? But when it comes to investment, I'd probably think twice.
Yeah. I think on the investment side of things, it is you can try time the market. But you can also try build in criteria. Going, I want a yield of 7%. I want to pay X amount back. I want X amount of positive cash flow coming in per year on that property. And you go, okay, well, that's my criteria. And if you find that investment property that gives you that, even if you think that, okay, well, now is not the perfect time to do it, but if you find an investment that gives you that and meets those criteria, you go, well, why wouldn't you buy that? But if you can't find something to go, well, I can't find anything that's giving me 7%, can't find anything that's giving me positive cash flow, then you have to go, okay, well, then I don't buy till I actually can find. So it's not about trying to time the market. It's actually about setting your criteria in terms of what you want from an investment property and going, okay, that's what I want and this is the risk I'm willing to take for it. And you also have the issue in terms of if interest rates do go up.
That's exactly that was going to be my next question.
So if you, like, I have talked to plenty of people in New York, because we're in New York kind of most of the time at the moment. I've talked to many Europeans in New York who've decided to buy a second home or decided to buy an investment property in Europe. Like, they're coming from Europe, they're living in New York, but they've decided going, interest rates are still so low from a historical point of view that they think it's still a good opportunity to buy a second home in Europe at the moment, because they're like, interest rates haven't been this low in years. And if you can lock in kind of a 5-year or 10-year fixed interest rate at this level, and you go, okay, well, that's my repayments for the next few years, I'm happy to lock that in. There's lots of people out there who've decided interest rates are actually affordable. Obviously, it's not affordable for everyone, but there are people out there who will make that decision going, it's cheap money compared to what it would be in other decades and other generations. It's still cheap money. Compared to where it has been previously. And you also have an issue in terms of, like, if you decide to wait longer, if you decide to wait a year, even if interest rates go up another percent or two, that impacts your affordability, that impacts your monthly repayments, and a bank is going to look at that. So if you're on 50 grand now, in a year's time, you're going to be able to borrow less because your affordability is lower. So it's going to impact you in terms of your...
It's going to be worse and worse, basically, yeah.
Well, I don't think interest rates... ultimately, I think governments are going to look at interest rates once the inflation drops down.
Isn't the inflation causing the interest rates to go up?
Yeah.
So basically, the more money they print, the more interest rates go up.
Yeah, well,
but they can't stop printing money. They have to keep printing money.
Well, they have to, but they haven't. Like, they printed a huge amount of money, like, during COVID time. And I think that's what people don't understand in terms of property values continuing to rise and asset values to continue to rise.
Yeah, tell us all this, because this is what I want to know.
So because there's so much cash out there, as I said, there's so much cash out there from like all these investment funds have this access to cash, and people want to put their cash somewhere. A lot of people during times of high inflation and a lot of them will put it into hard assets. So we've always heard of like, okay, during times of inflation, you put into gold or silver or whatever. But real estate is also a hard asset. And it's where a lot of investors will go to hedge their bets against inflation. So, because generally speaking, a property will still rise in line with inflation. So if you've got inflation running at like 6-7%, generally speaking, the trend has always been over the decades is property will generally rise in line with that. So if you've got cash in the bank, you've got a 200 grand in the bank sitting there, it just sits there, and it loses value. You've talked about this you talked on this podcast with someone else on that it loses money when it's sitting in the bank. But if you buy a property, at least the property is an asset that's generating rent, so it's generating rent coming in, and it's also increasing in value in line with inflation. So it will go up by about 6%. So therefore, your initial 200 grand of investment or whatever it is holding in line with inflation, and that's what's kind of happened in most cases over the generation. So a lot of big investors will go, we need to protect our cash investments, and we'll put it towards hard assets, and they'll put it towards hard assets in real estate, which will drive up prices even further. And I think the biggest issue that we probably face in terms of like if someone's looking at a kind of buying a family home or a small investment, the issue that people will face there is when the crash happened the last time, the value of properties, it took, as I said, it took about 5 years for properties to fall to a place where they started to go back up again. Where they actually started to go back up was basically their cost of replacement. So how much it cost to rebuild that property. So in 2012, in 2013, when all the funds started to come in, buying up offices, buying up other apartment blocks and stuff like that, they started buying at the base level of how much it costs to replace it, to how much to rebuild that office block or how much to rebuild that apartment complex. And that meant that they were getting the land for free effectively. And it was the base level of the property market was the cost of replacing it. So once it got to that cost level, it started to go up, and people started getting confident again, going, look, it can't drop below that because like I'm getting an asset that it would actually be more expensive to rebuild. So I'm actually getting a full asset fitted out and ready to go, and I don't have to build it, but it would cost me that much to build. And like if you're talking about a car or any kind of anything, if you saw any kind of investment opportunity, you could buy it for exactly how much it costs to build without any of the taxes, without any of the land or without anything else. You're going to go, well, that's a good deal. So lots of investors saw that Ireland as a good deal when it got to that level. Lots of funds came in and purchased properties from banks and NAMA and everything else at that stage. But what is happening now is construction costs are so expensive compared to actually the houses that are out there that the cost of rebuilding some houses out there is not far off the cost of actually the price of the property. So property values could fall maybe 10% and they'd be in line with how much it would cost to replace it in terms of how much it costs to rebuild a full house right now, depending on the location. Yeah. Obviously,
I know builders that are quitting the building because they took jobs. So, for example, one guy that I personally know, he took on an extension for 60 grand, right? Just before the COVID and all that. And he got it about a year later, right? 8-9 months later, and he had to reprice it at 120, double the price. Double the price.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to rebuild a house in Portobello at the moment, so I know all about construction costs, and we got quoted. We bought the house, or we went sale agreed on the house when the first lockdown happened. The property itself had been sale agreed with another party. We kind of kept our eye on it. It fell out of bed when COVID hit, and the first lockdown happened. We went to the agent and we were like, look, we don't know what's going to happen with the market. Like it could drop 10, 15, 20%, who knows. Give us we'll do a deal straight away. We'll sign up now quickly and we'll get it done. Agent was a bit slow to kind of react.
So the first pandemic was a learning curve for everybody. Yeah. We didn't know. Now we know it was all bullshit, but back then we didn't know.
But the thing about it was we eventually did get that deal, and we got that house for considerably less than what had gone sale agreed pre-COVID. So we were delighted with the deal that we got in the end. And at the time, we kind of said that construction costs for it we were kind of budgeting about 150 grand to redo it. Afterwards, or once we got planning permission and we got the house secured and we're starting on site, we're double that.
No way.
Yeah, pretty much. Not far off. We're not a full double, but like we're not far off doubling that, like in terms of all our costs.
Do you do any commercial investing on the commercials? Because I tell you, I want to get into the property investing. I didn't even know my own gaff, do you know what I mean? But I have big plans, but all I know is that I've never seen a multi-millionaire who owns 3-bedroom house in fucking Ballyfermot or fucking anywhere, do you know what I mean? 3-bedroom houses to me is not a way to get a millionaire. Am I wrong or right here?
I think it's really interesting because like if you're looking at YouTube and you're looking at all the property people on YouTube,
Grant Cardone is my guy. I don't want anybody else.
They all talk about like buying multi-family homes. They all talk about buying like how many units they have. They might have like 100, 1,000, 4,000 or whatever, and that's their kind of like I don't know what you want to how you say it, but that's their claim to fame, that they've got like 4,000 units. But like if you look at some of the most successful real estate investors and developers, they're not looking at multiple units all over the place. What they're doing is they're buying 1 or 2 office blocks that have the same amount of value as those.
That's what I want to do.
And they have far less management, and they have
exactly.
But the thing about it is, it's far more complicated. So it's very easy for someone to go in and go, okay, I understand how a house works and how tenants work within a lease. Mm-hmm. Everyone lives somewhere, so everyone can understand how it all works. But from a commercial point, I'll give you an example. A residential lease is about 14 pages long in most cases here in Ireland. Mm-hmm. You've got to deal with the RTB in terms of regulations and stuff like that. But it's not complicated. It's really not that complicated. Yeah. When you talk about a commercial lease within an office block or a shopping centre, the minimum you're talking is probably about 80 to 90 pages. And you could be, in a shopping centre, you could be talking about 300 pages when you build in all the service charge and all the rules and regulations that go along with being in a shopping centre for a tenant. And there's a handful of clauses within those leases.
Yeah, but don't you hire guys to do it for you?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's way more complicated. And unless you understand where to get that value or create that value, because the asset itself, you could have one commercial building. Let's say you have an office block on Leeson Street, or you have actually just talk about this unit here. You have this unit here, and let's just say you're in it and you're paying rent or whatever that rent is, and next door is empty and there's no tenant in it. Right now, your unit could be worth 50% more than next door, because you've got a lease in place. But that will all depend on the piece of paper and who was signed and what guarantees have gone into that. So when you look at a residential lease or residential property, it's quite easy for most people to figure out what it's worth or where the value is. But if you look at a commercial property, it's that piece of paper. It's that lease. That's where all the value is. It's in that lease. And if you don't understand how to read that lease or where to create value from that lease, someone else will screw you over.
But see, I believe that if you want to get into the commercial property, you can hire somebody. Even a total rookie like me can do it, I believe. Can't I just hire somebody to do it? If I was going to, let's say I want to get into the property investing, I have a $500,000 there, because that's what I want to do. I want to wait till I have enough money to get into the big stuff. Fuck this 3-bedroom houses, right? So when I get into it, can't I just hire somebody to do all that for me?
Yeah, so if you can go ahead and hire all these multiple companies that like will manage these properties for you and let them out for you. But in terms of actually creating the value and finding the value, generally most times it's the investor who decides this is the strategy we're going to go about, i.e. we're going to buy this office block, we're going to take the tenants out, and we're going to add 2 floors to it. And by adding 2 floors to it, we're creating more office space, and then we're going to put a new tenant in. And you've increased the value by 40-50% on that building. So while you will hire multiple disciplines to do that, someone needs to come up and see the idea to do that, and someone needs to see the opportunity. So some people might go into an office block and go, okay, well, there's an office block, there's multiple tenants in it, I think we can get a few of those tenants out, they're not paying great rents, they're not great tenants, we'll get them all out and we'll lease it to one major company, and then they'll take over the whole building. And that's our asset strategy. Over a course of 2 or 3 years, you get a major tenant in it, the value of the building goes up, because realistically The value of your property in commercial real estate is in that piece of paper. It's in the lease. So when you look at a building, like, some people could actually just pick up a lease and go, well, the value of this is X, Y, and Z, and not even look at a photograph of the building, because they'll know how much value is in that lease in terms of what they're paying. And there's clauses within those leases. There will be rent review clauses. Every 5 years, the rent might go up. And there'll be clauses, small lines within that rent review clause, that if the right person reads that, they'll go, right, this is a great opportunity here to perhaps increase the value by 20-30% of that property over the next 2 years.
Can I say something? Yeah. What's the best way to improve yourself if somebody wanted to get into that line of work? Because you need to know what you're doing, right?
You really need to know what you're doing.
Because from what you're saying, this is not a job for a rookie.
No, it's not. And
so how to prepare yourself for stuff like that?
I suppose I did 4 years of college doing property economics, which was all about commercial real estate. And so most of my career has been around commercial real estate. I've learned a lot with my Tesco days in terms of the law. It's a huge amount about the law and huge amount about what you can do in leases, what you can't do in leases, and how to manipulate leases as well. Like there will be hundreds of people that might just get a building and go, okay, well, this is the lease that we have here and we're selling the building, and they put it on the market for, let's say, $1 million. Someone else could read that lease and go, we've got an opportunity here to increase the value of this property by changing the rent review by 30%, and therefore they're uplifting the rent by 30%, and they're uplifting the value by 30%. They're not changing anything. They're not doing any refurbs. They're not doing anything. But by literally changing something or seeing something within the lease, they can go, well, this is an opportunity for us. And we'll buy it at $1 million, knowing that we will up the rent in a year's time, and we'll increase the value and be able to sell that property in 2 years' time for 1.4 million or whatever it is, because they've seen that opportunity within the lease. And it takes time. There's no fast way to learn.
No.
It takes years and experience. I have seen hundreds of different leases, and it's seeing those hundreds of different leases that allows you the opportunity to go, okay, well, here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity, seeing that on the market. Or perhaps there's a tenant that's about to vacate, and you go, okay, well, that tenant's going to vacate. Their rent is pretty low. And you go, okay, well, look, that's what the value of the asset is at the moment based on that low rent. You see it, you read their lease, and in their lease it says that there's a yield up clause, and they have to repair the property, and to bring it back up to repair, and they have to get it like really nice and fancy before they walk out. And the tenant has to pay for all of this. And some people might walk into a building and go, oh, well, it's all disrepaired, blah, blah, blah. But if they read that line in the lease where the tenant is responsible for all the repairs before they vacate, you can go, right, you're paying for all these repairs, and if you don't pay for them, I want the equivalent value from you in cash before you leave. And the tenant will have to pay a considerable amount of money to get out of the lease.
You really have to read your lease before you get a commercial lease.
Yeah, and like commercial leases, like I've seen so many people, so many tenants, so many like small businesses really, really being hurt in terms of a lease. So they go into, like, I've seen tenants go into a property, be successful for 5 years. The rent review comes up. They don't quite understand how the rent review works, and they get crucified. They get bad advice and they get crucified, and in a year's time they're out of business because their rent is too high. I've seen that happen multiple times. I've seen it happen multiple times where tenants have gone into buildings, made changes, and then go, okay, well, we're leaving this building next year. Talk to the landlord. The landlord goes, okay, well, you need to put it back to X, Y, and Z. You need to rebuild this wall. You need to rebuild this glass facade that we had. You need to take down all your signage, and you need to do X, Y, and Z. And that's going to cost you $500,000 to do in a big enough building. It will.
Yeah, on the commercial. We're talking about
it will. We'll talk. And then they go, well, we don't have that kind of money. And you're like, well, you better have that type of money. And like, it puts them out of business.
And lease is serious. You have to obey lease.
Yeah, you have to obey lease.
You will be sued, and there's nothing you can do.
So, and that's an important thing as well. So you will have leases where a tenant will have gone in an LLC or a company's name and have signed it on a company's name. So if I'm looking at a building and the lease is in a company's name, and it's a small company or it's a limited liability company, and you go, look, there's no guarantee that they might be in business. There may not be, like, once they might want to leave this property, they might go, look, we're leaving and we're closing up and we're winding up this business, and we're we're going bankrupt and whatever. You can sue an empty vessel if you want. And that does happen to some landlords. But a lot of cases, a landlord will ask for a guarantee, and they'll ask for a personal guarantee on that. If it's a new enough company, if it's a big, massive, blue chip company, they won't ask for that. But if it's a new enough company, they'll go, well, we want a guarantee on this. We want someone who's personally responsible, personally liable, that if you decide to walk away from this lease, where you personally are responsible. And it could take it, like I've seen people get judgments against them. It takes them 20 years to pay off because they've wrongly entered into a commercial lease and not got good advice and have really hurt themselves by doing it.
I've heard some horror stories, nothing of that magnitude.
But investors need to be very careful as well. So when they buy that property, they need to look at the lease. They need to read the lease and go, well, who's actually responsible? Who's on the hook for this? So if that company decides to, look, we're walking out of here, say it's a 20-year lease you're buying in a property, you go, okay, well, I've got this property, my rent is guaranteed for 20 years. But if it's just some small LLC that someone can wind up or the next day, the landlord could go, okay, well, I've no one to sue here. But if there's a guarantor on that, a personal guarantor, i.e. the directors have guaranteed that, they go, okay, well, at least if they decide to wind up, I'm going after them. And you're going after their family home and their assets and everything else. So not that you'll get the family home, but you will get a judgment against them that they'll eventually have to pay everything back.
So lesson here, boys and ladies and gentlemen, is that whenever you're getting a lease, get somebody who know what they're doing and get them to read it.
Yeah.
Could they contact? Do you provide any services in terms of that?
Yeah, so that's generally kind of a lot of the work I do. So I work.
There you
go. So I work with like McDonald's and Circle K because they even employ people. Those even big companies employ people like me to give them that type of advice to make sure they don't sign something or don't enter into something that messes them up. I'll give you a really good example of a major company. I won't say their name. They're a major tech company in Ireland.
Do everybody knows them?
Everyone knows them. Everyone probably has their app on their phone. Not quite Facebook, but everyone would have. Anyone who's listening to a success story podcast or whatever will have it on their phone. And basically, they signed a lease in a building that was attached to another building that was a government-run building. So they took one side of an office block. There was a government office block next door, but it was a shared car park. But the government side of the block managed the car park. So they managed the car park. Everyone who knows civil servants, they go home at 5 o'clock or they go home early. This tech company obviously stays up late. They're doing American hours. They're doing world business all over the world. So their staff are there all the time. Car park shuts at 8 o'clock every day, opens at 8 o'clock every morning. Hundreds of times their staff cars were caught in the car park, couldn't get out, had to get a taxi home. They pleaded with the management company going, look, can we not sort out this car park? Like, can we not have it open up all the time? And they're like, well, your lease doesn't allow you have that negotiation power over the car park. The government block buildings lease had control over the car park and the car park entrance. And realistically, this was a major tenant for Ireland and for jobs and everything like that. The government office block should have really gone and go, we'll sort this out for you. Be human, we'll sort this out for you. But it took years of negotiation because there's 2 or 3 staff down there managing the car park. They're like, no, this is our jobs. Like, we go home at 8 o'clock and we lock up. Like, anyone's bikes or anyone's car that's behind here, they'll get it in the morning. And like, this is a major company with some of the biggest solicitor firms in the entire country. But because those solicitors didn't go out to site and look at what was actually happening on the ground before that lease was signed, that tenant, that major international tenant, had to suffer the consequences of that for about 4 or 5 years before it ever got resolved. And they didn't have the negotiation power within their lease. They didn't have the ability to control the car park. They learned from their mistakes, obviously, but it just shows that even at that level, mistakes happen. And if you don't get the right wording in your commercial lease, you can really suffer the consequences of it. Yeah.
Do you have any more horror stories? And before we get to another one, could you also tell us what other services do you provide? Because you're a handy man. All this is handy stuff if somebody likes the property game, you know?
So, I suppose I went out on my own about 7 years ago, and I started Fleming Real Estate. And
So, first of all, how can people find you? Where are you?
so I'm on YouTube and Instagram. It's Fleming Real Estate or it's Shane Fleming Real Estate on YouTube now, probably, and it's probably Shane Fleming on Instagram. I kind of rebranded recently just towards my own personal brand, so most of it's just Shane Fleming on Instagram or on YouTube. There are one or two fake accounts out there on Instagram.
Actually, a funny story. That's how I so I texted this gentleman here, and I texted a fake profile, and they were like, "Yeah, come on, we'll do it. We'll come. I'll come to the podcast once you invest $600 in this Ponzi scheme." And I was like, "Oh no, that smells fishy."
Yeah. I think you were probably about like that weekend. My weekend was ruined that weekend. I got probably about 200 messages from people. Like I couldn't see that account. Obviously, they'd blocked me from an early stage, so I couldn't see it. But I probably got 200, 300 messages that weekend from friends. And like, fairness, some of my friends like decided knew it wasn't me. Like from the get go, knew it wasn't me. And they strung them along for probably about like a week and a half, just going, yeah. And some of them actually, some of them decided to, some of them decided to Revolut me cash and take a screenshot of Revoluting me cash and sending this guy who was like trying to con them, going, "I've revoluted you, here's the screenshot." And he was getting so frustrated that the money was going into my account and not his. So I was obviously sending straight back to them, but they were like winding them up for a week or two. Like,
there you go. This is the downside of getting semi-famous, because you have a lot of followers there. Look, a lot of followers, guys, listen to this. A lot of followers means different things in different brands. If we were in business of farting into jars and selling that, we would have millions of followers. We would. Mm-hmm. Fucking people watch that shit all the time, right? But we're in business of success, money, property. Not a lot of people wants to see that. Whoever watches this podcast is not an idiot. Let's face it. People who watch this podcast are people who want better life. They're not watching us because we're doing fucking hand wrestling. So you have to understand that when you're looking at people's followers, that's why somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, your podcast only has a few followers." And I said, "Yeah, because there's no idiots on it." That's why. You know what I mean? And it's honest truth. As hard as it sounds, it's true.
Yeah, I think another thing about it is, from an Irish point of view, Irish people don't like to give people follows or see success, and like it's really important, I think, to celebrate success. Like the difference I see from New York to Dublin in terms of how people try to build people up and how people try to support people, it's incredible. Like, fair enough.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It's so like Irish people just want to keep people down. It's like, and like I see it on my YouTube.
I wouldn't have that. I'm not Irish, so I wouldn't have that. I don't know. I'm only here for 10 years, 10, 15. So
yeah, no, I like. You will have, like, you'll find people that want to build other people up in Ireland, and it's fraction. But if you go to America, like, obviously they want something else in return or whatever, but they're not afraid to try help people and hype people up all the time, because they'll go like, well, if you do this for you, you do this for me, scratch my back, scratch your back. In Ireland, it's more like, we want to keep people down. I don't want to see people succeed, because people succeeding reminds me of my own failures.
Can I say that this is not just Ireland? Poland is much more like that.
Yeah.
My home country?
Yeah.
Even worse. So,
Yeah, so what I'm kind of saying in terms of followers, or how many people follow you on kind of a certain social media account, like, I think if you were doing this in America, you'd have way more following. One, the audience is far bigger, but like, you will have far more followers far quicker, because they're happy just to help people along, and they're happy to like kind of support people. They're happy to share other people's success, and they promote success, and they want to be associated with success. I think in Ireland there's a little bit of begrudgery about it when people succeed, and that's seen in the media. Anyone who succeeds,
brilliant example of that, Joe Doyle.
Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about the guy. I took his business course. I spoke to him loads of times. He's a fucking gent. And he fucking kills it. He'll be here after you, by the way. But, everything he says is kind of on point. I mean, he is a little bit of controversial, but you have to be on YouTube these days and on Facebook and all that,
Yeah.
But he gets nothing but fucking haters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he probably gets more haters than I do.
He does.
Yeah, he probably does.
And you know what? He provides nothing but value. Look
Yeah.
at his profile. There's nothing but value.
And
it's just pure value. I watch it all the time. Every time I watch his stuff, I learn something new.
I've actually followed him for years. We haven't communicated or haven't come across each other in any. But I saw him at one of Jamie White's. I don't know if you've come across Jamie White at all. He probably not really that active anymore. But he ran this entrepreneurs experience down in the Dublin Castle there 2 years in a row back before COVID, maybe about 2017, 2018. And Joe was there. And I remember Joe was there. And I was going to try to talk to him because but whatever way we didn't cross over paths, or when maybe he left early or whatever, but I didn't get the chance to talk to him. But I saw him there, and that he's there because he's trying to succeed, and he's trying to grow and get more knowledge. And the people up on the stage were all pretty successful people, and he's there learning, I'm there learning. And I'd come across him on Facebook. I'm not really that active on Facebook, where he's more active than anywhere else. But we're kind of on two different sides of the property spectrum. Like, he's more on the residential side of things. He's more on the kind of fixer up kind of. I'm more on the commercial side of things. So our paths don't really cross from a professional point of view. But I think he is where he gets it really right, and is trying to help tradesmen who are trying to kind of break into.
He's not expensive.
Yeah,
but not expensive. Look at this. I'll show this. Look. This is his book, right? And I read it twice. Do you know why I read it twice? Because the first time I was in the park and I was reading it, right? And there was a chapter about contracts. And in my car business, the place was fucking being ran to the ground because there was no contract in place. People were coming in and they were calling back, what about this? What about that? And when I read that very page, I was like, blink. And I was in the Finks Park reading this on Saturday at 5 o'clock p.m. And I ran straight from there over here to write that contract. And I was like, you know what, fucking Joe, thank fucking you.
Yeah.
And then I read it again, So, every book has something in it, I mean, even if regardless of what you think about the guy, that's what I say to people. Business growth is like a fucking Chinese buffet. I say it to everybody. Look at the book, take whatever resonates with you, whatever the value is. Don't mind the guy.
No, we look at property in two different ways. I look at it from my experience is more on the commercial side, more on the fun side of things, and that's how I've kind of experienced property from a different side of things, where he's seen it from a landlord tenant residential side, where I've experienced in that. He's probably way more experienced in it than I do in terms of bringing a single house. It's a different game. It's a different game. But what I find really kind of cool about what he does is he is trying to he has his niche in terms of he wants to talk to contractors and small guys or plumbers, electricians, bricklayers or roofers. He wants those guys to be in the room with him, and that's his market. And I think that's a great thing to do, because so many people reach out to me about how to get involved in property and how do I succeed in property, and they're like, I want to own a few homes, I want to let a few homes, should I do this course or that course or this course? I'm straight, I haven't gone to college, I'm 18, I'm deciding what I want to do. I'm going, the most successful kind of landlords that have the 10, 20, 30, 40 houses, the most successful of those guys are guys that are coming from the trade. They're not guys that are coming from my side of the world, that are coming from the commercial education side of the background. They're guys that understand. They're guys that come from trades, and they're if you want to be successful and you want to have a handful of units, or you want to do flips or you would do that kind of stuff on the residential side, the trades are a better way to start, because I'd say
carpentry is the first one.
Yeah, because you can do some of the work yourself. I obviously did have a license in real estate. I was able to buy and sell stuff, and I was an agent. I'm not really kind of focusing on that anymore. But my value in terms of that is okay, I can put a house on the market, or I can buy a house. I can't.
Can I tell you something?
I can't do the electrician. I can't do anything like that.
Do you know what? I'll tell you something funny here. 5 years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, I wanted to open my own real estate agency. Yeah, I even had the website ready, Diamond Property.
Good name.
Yeah, I wanted to buy and sell property because I looked at it and I was like, right, so they charge 1%. So you buy you sell a gaff for 600,000. Well, that's a 6 grand profit, isn't it? All you have to do is put it on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, realistically, I was in a big shortcut, you know what I mean? So I did everything, blah, blah, blah. When I came to my accountant to register the company, I came across the fact that you need to get a license. And in order to get a license, you have to have a FTEC level 5 of education or something like that. And I didn't have that because I didn't finish a lot of school, you know?
Well, like, kind of talking about that in terms of the license. So I've had my license for years. And it's not something that was there when I started my career. It came in afterwards.
Oh.
Yeah.
So did you not get it in college?
No. So you have to apply for it separately. It's a government license. So I got my degree. I became chartered. So I actually got my degree. I became chartered, and just about when I got chartered, as in like I did like a few years extra after I finished in college to go and learn more about like real estate. I had to sit in front of a peer. I had to do a thesis effectively, another thesis effectively, and then I had to sit in front of my peers, not my peers, actually the professionals within the industry who had more experience than I did, sit in front of them and sit there for an hour answering questions. They could be random questions, it could be anything about the commercial real estate and all that kind of stuff. And you have to sit there and answer all these questions for an hour. It's like an exam, but it's an oral exam. It's about how you perform under pressure. It's about how you can answer questions. And it's more importantly, how you make sure you don't lie. That you don't lie or you don't bullshit in front of other professionals. And
those professionals usually are good at body language and they'll spot it straight away.
Yeah, so and they know if you're lying, and if they lie, you're not getting it. Like like if you go, and like the most important thing is like if you don't know the answer to it, if you actually in that interview, if you don't know the answer to it, it's called the APCs. If you don't know the answer to it, you go, oh, sorry, don't know the answer to that, but I can find, this is how I'd find out the answer, i.e. I talk to someone more professional or more experienced within the office, or I would look up this like book or whatever. And if you answer the question that way, great. But if you try bullshit the question, you're done. Because if you try to bullshit your way through a professional meeting, through to a commercial investor, and you make up stuff, you're liable to be sued at some stage. And they don't want people who are liable to be sued. Talking about getting the license in real estate, a huge amount of people reach out to me on the YouTube channel about how do they start in real estate. They watch all these videos over in the UK about like getting into property sourcing, getting into rent to rent, and they all reach out to me. I'm the one Irish person that they reach out to going, how do you do this in Ireland? And I've actually had to put up videos and create videos to answer those questions, because so now that when someone asks me that question, I just go, oh, here, just check out this video.
Great.
But like realistically, I decided at the start of this year to give up my license because I was trying to focus on something slightly different. It's still all real estate focused, but the license allows me to sell, buy and lease properties. But a lot of my work that I was doing was on the consultancy side. So I was consulting McDonald's, consulting Circle K, and consulting other kind of investors and developers and stuff like that. So it didn't fall into the sale and letting side of things. So it didn't fall into the licensing, and they didn't like the fact that I was mixing both of those type of businesses together, and they asked me to split out my bank accounts and split out everything from each other. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm getting X amount from that side of the business, and I'm getting this amount from this side of the business. I'm not really interested in doing sales and lettings. And I had kind of tried to take on other staff to do that side of the business, and that was working out for a little bit because I was over in New York so much at that time. At the start of the year, I was like, I'm not going to renew it this year. I'll look at it in like 2 or 3 years again to renew it. But I decided on the hassle of renewing those licenses and getting those licenses.
Does it cost a lot of money?
It doesn't cost a huge amount of money. It costs about €1,000. Or no, sorry, it's 1,200 to renew. But you have to put in your insurance details. You have to put in your tax clearance details. You also have to put in your education details. But the problem was that you get audited. It started off, you got audited every like kind of 2 years. Now they're like, because of COVID, they were able to like catch up, and they were auditing people all the time. So you're getting audited every 12 months. And I was like, it's such a small part of my business that I'm like, is it worth me paying all the insurance, paying the licensing fees, paying everything else, and not even the payment side of things? It was like, is it worth all the hassle? Because I'm actually more focused, and I like the consultancy side of my business far more than the sales side of stuff. So I decided that like that's not something I want to pursue long term. So I decided like, look, I'm just going to give up my license. If I want it again in like 4 or 5 years time and set up something else again, fine, I'll do that again.
Let's move into the commercial properties that are getting built around the place and tell us why the heck is none of them for sale? There's a big apartment block getting built just in Finglas, just behind that new bridge, right? And I looked at it and I wanted to get an apartment on the top floor, you know? None of them are for sale. Is this part of the Great Reset, or what the hell is going on there? Because, you know, the trick is that they want everybody to be renting in the next 10 years. Nobody is to be owning their property.
Yeah. It's not quite part of the Great Reset, but
Okay,
it is part of it. I'd imagine you could say it's part of the Great Reset, but is it actually like fundamentally part of it in terms of why they're only actually building?
They were forced to it,
yeah. So there's two things, probably more than two things, but there's one fundamental thing, and the fundamental thing is to build a house. You can go into a building site and you can build it by phases. So you can do 20 houses at a time. You can go to the bank or you go to the financier and go, I'm building 20 houses. I want a bit of money to build these houses, and build 20 at a time, and you sell 20. You get a bit of profit, you pay back the loan, you get a bit of profit yourself. You do it again. You build 20 more and you build 20 more. And eventually you have 300 houses. And that works from a financial model point of view. From a financial model point of view, to build a block of apartments, let's say there's 200 apartments there, you cannot sell the first 20, and you cannot sell the next 20, and you cannot sell the next 20. So you need the money for the entire lot. And it's way more expensive to build an apartment than it is to build a house at the moment, mainly because of building regs. It all changed a few years ago. There's more stairs, there's more fire exits, there's a lot more kind of things in terms of size. Both of them the apartments have to be dual aspect, and it's a lot to build into an apartment complex. And it increases the cost massively, because if you go to like an apartment complex in America, or go to an apartment complex like in perhaps Europe, I haven't been to enough of them in Europe, but you'll go up a lift and that lift will bring you to a floor and you'll have loads of doors on that floor. And if you go to anywhere in New York or anywhere around America, go up a lift, you'll see loads of doors on that floor, like a hotel. In Ireland, they basically said that there only can be a handful of apartments per stair core. So you need multiple stair cores. And stair cores are concrete. That is silly. Stair cores are concrete. They're expensive. There's doors. There's fire. I have a lot of construction knowledge, so yeah. And it adds so rather than you having one lift corridor or one lift block and one stair corridor that might serve like 20 apartments or 20 or 30 or 40 apartments on one, you now in Ireland need like every 7 or...
But is there a reason for it, or is it just stupidity?
Design regulations in terms of fire exit, that you're close enough to that stairs, all these kind of things. So that has added massively to the cost of building apartments. And therefore, to build an apartment in Ireland at the moment, let's just, I don't know how much it would cost out where you just mentioned, but let's just say Dublin City, Dublin 2 around the Docklands, or Dublin 1 around the Docklands. They reckon it costs for a 2-bed apartment, an average size 2-bed apartment is about 614,000 or 619,000 to build a 2-bed apartment in the city centre at the moment. And that figure is last year's figure.
What?
That's last year's figure.
That has to sell for $1 million.
Yeah. So if you want, like, most developers have to work on a 15% profit margin, because the banks won't lend to them if there's not that buffer for them for the market to go up a little bit.
15% of number of 600.
So 15% of that is what are we talking about? They need at least 120 grand, 150 grand out of that per apartment. For them to have that buffer to lend. Madness. So basically what happens is the only people who will fund these apartment complexes that are now what we all know as build to rent apartment complexes are funds. So the funds will go, okay, well, we'll give you the money to build it, and we'll buy it off you afterwards. And so might be one fund who will go, we'll lend you, and another fund will buy it off you. But that deal is done before they break ground. So they will go, okay, well, we've got an apartment complex. We're building 400 apartments. We reckon it's going to cost us X, Y, and Z to build it. This is how much we're in already for the land and everything else. And we need X amount to build it. Can we borrow that? They'll go, no. You turn around to a fund like BlackRock or Blackstone or whoever, or even Aviva or Irish Life, and you go, well, we have 600 apartments here coming on, or 400 apartments coming on here. How much will you pay for these 400 apartments? And they'll go, okay, right, we'll give you 500 grand for each one bed. We'll give you 700 grand for each two bed, and we'll give you 800 grand for each three bed. And they agree a price, and that price is agreed. And then they go back to the lender and they go, right, we've got a contract signed that they will buy the entire block off us for X. We can build it for Y, and here's our profit margin. Here's everything, and let's go. And the funder will go, okay, let's do this. We'll give you the funds to go. But it's impossible for a developer to go around to a lender and go, I want to sell this on the open market to mortgage holders or to people who want to live here.
Why not?
Because none of them can sign that contract before they break ground. So they have that piece of paper. They go, we've sold this. We've pre-sold this to an investment fund. So we've pre-sold it for, let's say, 400 million. We've pre-sold this for 400 million.
So this is very smartly designed. Whoever came up with this whole thing, because I believe this is all part of Klaus Schwab's gang. I don't believe this is a coincidence. I don't believe it. Well, this is all engineered by geniuses, I think.
So that's the only way you can fund an apartment development at the moment, unless you are one of the builders who survived through NAMA and you're a family-based builder who...
like Sisk?
No, not like Sisk. Like Sisk are a contractor, but you would have like Park Developments, you would have the Saracen Group that like will have been building houses for 100 years. Mm-hmm. They buy land, and like a lot of people talk about like land hoarding is so bad, but the only reason they're still in business, most of these families, is they might have bought originally in like Rathmines or Ranelagh 100 years ago, built those houses. As they build those, they buy out in Strorgan. As they build those, they buy it in Leopardstown. As they build those, they build...
That's how you do it.
So they buy the land like 10 years in advance. Mm-hmm. Like, and they keep working out or they keep working up or whatever, but they buy the land far in advance. And there's only a handful of companies like that in Ireland that have actually survived multi-generational. But it's really good that those families are out there, because a lot of them have a little bit of a principle that they're like, okay, well...
Do you have any connections with those guys? Because I'd love to get one of them on the podcast. Do you know what I mean? They'd be hard to get on the podcast.
They won't talk to you.
They won't talk to you. No. They've made it. They don't have to do it.
Like, they won't talk to you. And there's good reason they won't talk to you. Like, they'll be crucified by the media. Like, and like... Even like I'm one of the only people in commercial real estate who go out and talk to people and explain this.
Do you not think I've asked other guys?
And there's no one else who will do it. And because they think I'm lucky enough, because I work for myself and I do a lot of things on my own, that I'm in the position to be able to do that. But a lot of other people have clients or have other people that are like, they'd be crucified if
guys. Guys, when this gentleman walked into the office, I was like a little dog when he sees his owner after a week of a vacation. I nearly pissed myself, because that's how hard it is to get a commercial property guy on camera to talk about this shit. Trust me, when was the last time you seen somebody talking about this shit on a podcast? You don't see this. You don't. You don't. No. I know that because I watch stuff all the time. Education is part of my life. I do it 5 hours a day. Driving before sleep, after sleep, I do it all the time. So,
but it's part of the problem in terms of like YouTube. I think I've kind of tried to like talk about this before, but it's part of the problem like on YouTube, where you have all these uber successful real estate investment guys like Grant Cardone and other people as well over in the UK, XYZ.
I'm talking about Irish market.
But they are not. They're not the success stories. Like they're not the success stories. Like, they're the guys who, like, if you were to really see who the big landlords are, like, you don't know their name. You don't know their name.
Guys in suits, of course, of course.
And, like, I there's one that pops to my head all the time, when I think about this, because there's a lot of people who are like, okay, well, let's like look at Grant Cardone, or let's look at and how they built their real estate empires, or there's guys in the UK who are very much on YouTube and stuff in terms of what they're doing. But there's one guy who always pops into my head in terms of like who people should study, and it's a guy called Stephen Vernon, who I don't know if you'll find any much information about him.
Oh, don't worry.
There will be a little bit out there.
What's his second name?
Vernon. So he bought like Blanchardstown Shopping Centre, or he developed Blanchardstown Shopping Centre years and years ago.
That was recently bought, you know that?
No, but he sold it years ago. He sold it before the '08 crash.
Mm-hmm.
He saw it coming. He got out of property. He sold everything, made millions before the '08 crash. In 2012, 2013, he started a company called Green REIT, which is one of the first REITs in Ireland after the legislation had been passed. He raised over $1 billion, and invested over $1 billion in Irish real estate. Around 2012 to 2015 or 16, he had a very smart team around him, and most of the people who work there are incredibly good at their job, and will all be very successful in real estate, and still are very successful in real estate. But he developed one of the first REITs in Ireland. What people don't know what REITs are is they're like a real estate investment trust. They're tax efficient companies that allow you to invest in real estate and roll up a lot of the rental income to pass on as dividend or reinvest. And they're very tax efficient. They're over in America. There's millions of them over in America, but there's only been like 3 or 4 of them in Ireland so far. They haven't really worked in Ireland because our Irish people just don't get them, and we don't invest in them or whatever. But he started one of the first ones, put about $1 billion into it, got about
$1 billion.
Got about
People don't understand the value of $1 billion. Do you know how many fucking zeros is there in $1 billion?
But the fund was worth about $1 billion at one stage, and they put about $1 billion. They bought like office blocks and industrial estates all over Ireland for a course of about maybe 6-7 years. And then what they realised was the actual asset value, like the value of the property that was sitting in the fund, was higher value than the share price of the REIT. And they were like, this isn't working in Ireland. Like, this doesn't work. Like, there was about a 10-15% gap between the share price and the actual asset value of the thing. And they decided to sell out in 2009. It was all commercial property. It was all office-based commercial property and industrial property that they sold out. They sold out for like 1.3, 1.36 billion. So they made a bit of a profit over about 6 years. A bit of a profit, about 300 million or whatever profit they made. And if COVID hadn't have happened, like let's just say COVID hadn't happened, he would have timed the market perfectly. When we got to 08, he got out, he sold everything before 08, and he sold everything again in 09, or just before 09, or sorry, 2019. If COVID hadn't happened, the likelihood is we would have gone into a slight bit of a recession anyway. And it was the right time to get out, because he was looking at the yields he was getting and the values that were there. And he was like, this makes sense to sell. And he bought in 2012 and 2013. And like, they're the kind of people that I think people should study. Not these Grant Cardone people.
Yeah, Grant Cardone, he gives you a lot of the mental power, but not a lot of look. You could look at it many different ways, because from what you're saying, that guy, he's one of the... Look, I look at people that there's a different levels, right? So you have a typical guy, you have a businessman, you have a property guy, and then you go.
Yeah.
You can go all the fucking way up. There's guys out there who are just, you don't see them.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I'm on YouTube and I'm studying these guys, somebody might record a video and they expose them a little bit, but there's very little pictures of them even. These guys don't even take selfies.
No, they don't.
They don't. Those guys don't. You know what I mean? That's why I laugh when I see guys who taking selfies on the internet. Why the fuck would you take a selfie and think somebody wants to look at it as well? Do you know what I mean? That's another one.
Like, there's another one, like the Ronan Developments and Johnny Ronan out there. Like, probably some people will know him from, like, the Irish Times and RT and all of them are using a photo that's probably like 15, 20 years old at this stage, because while he is very public in the in media in terms of some of his developments and what he's tried to do down in Spencer Dock and what he's tried to do there in terms of building like the tallest building in Dublin and
I want to do that in the future. That's my goal.
all those things that he's trying to do and trying to push the envelope. He was very like much in the media presence before 2008, but after 2008 kind of dropped off, and they're still using the photographs that they had from 2008, and it's kind of crazy that
those people are very conservative.
He wasn't at the time. He wasn't at the time. But
he probably regrets it though. Right, so we're back live again. We just took a little break, and now we're gonna shift the interview to something different, right? So we were talking about the commercial side of things and this and that, but I want to provide as much value to these fuckers as much as I can, right? And while I have you here, let's pick your brain, right? So let's talk about property education, right? How to get yourself, let's say somebody's watching us and they want to get more money. How would you, do you have any, how would people start it? Because you don't want to go uneducated to the property market because you're going to make mistakes. It's better to learn on other people's mistakes. So would you have any directions for people in terms of property education and personal growth? How to start journey of personal growth? Because people don't get it. People don't get personal growth. Why is it important in business, especially in the property? You have to be a guy that knows shit. You have to be. How do you become that guy? You give people a little bit of value here. After that, we're going to talk about the Great Reset and Klaus Schwab.
Geez, that's such a hard question to answer.
Not really.
I know, it really is. People ask me all the time, what's the best book to read? What is the best course to go on? It's a hard one to answer because YouTube have a lot of stuff going on and a lot of courses in different types of real estate. For myself, I went to college. I did a degree in property economics. It was 4 years of degree, and then I went and got chartered, and that was another 3 or 4 years to go get chartered. So it wasn't an easy process for me to educate myself, and for me to go and kind of go, well, you can learn X, Y, and Z in a matter of months or a matter of courses. I have continued my education all the way through. Last year, I did a degree. I did a course in NYU in New. I was in New York, so I decided to do a course in NYU. I did a course
Could I just ask you, what do you do in New York, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so
you're big over there.
No, well, I'm not. I'm over there.
You're always there.
I'm always there. I'm not big over there, but
I'm
always there.
About New York. What are you doing?
So,
don't mind me asking.
it's a bit of a sad story, but so my wife is from New York. Her mum passed away just as COVID started. And she has her sister and brother there, and her dad's there as well. And we were living in Ireland, and we decided, with lockdown and everything else happening, we said we'd spend some time with her side of the family. We just bought a house, and we were planning to renovate it anyway. So we were like, look, we're not going to be living in that house for a while. So we decided we'd go over to New York, and we decided we'd go over for 3 months. It turned out that 3 months turned into 6 months. That 6 months turned into a year. And that year turned into 2 years, and we're now there almost 2 years at this stage, and we're probably going to be there for another year or two. So it stemmed out of a tragic kind of situation, and it turned into a way to kind of me to re-look at myself and re-evaluate what I was doing. And also it turned into a time where I can spend a huge amount of time with her side of the family, because we're not going to get that opportunity all that often. And I took advantage of it. Really got to know her brother and sister and her dad, and well done. That's so important to me. Family is so important to me. So I didn't mind taking a step back a little bit from my business kind of world to be able to do that. And while I was there, I was like,
but do you do any consulting there?
No, I've been able to manage my consultancy business in Ireland from there. Yeah, from technology, and my clients still know I'm there, which they know I'm still there most of the time, and they've been very they haven't minded, because the advice they're getting is the same advice. So they haven't minded the fact that
there you go, guys. This should be a lesson to everybody. A lot of businesses, especially consulting, can be done from anywhere.
Yeah,
anywhere.
You can't one thing I would say though is you cannot make an Irish salary and live in New York. It just
can't make
no, you can't make an Irish salary and live in New York. You have to find different ways. So we're not going to be able to stay there long term. It just
Really?
it won't
I
make
thought
sense.
New York was the land of opportunities.
New York is the land of opportunities.
Not at the scale of Ireland.
Like New York has a different buzz, different energy. I love the city. Like it gives me such energy to go in, be there, and like it's inspirational when you walk around the city and you see those buildings, you see what's being constructed. You go, it inspires you, and like you know that there's someone else behind that. There's someone else doing that. Someone else has created that. And go like, why can't I do this? And there's no limiting factors in New York. You go, I can do this. Anyone can do this, and it gives you the inspiration to do that. And it has given me the inspiration to take a step. I'm taking I'm taking like maybe 5 or 6 steps back. I'm kind of slowly winding down some of my consultancy business, wind down like I've completely and utterly wind down my sales and letting side of the business. I've totally got rid of all of that. On the basis that I'm trying to redevelop something and I'm trying to change something, and I've seen we're going to talk about it soon about the Great Reset and everything else. I've seen something that I think that like in a few years' time will be very valuable for other people, and I want to try create that for other people. And I'm now in the process of trying to do that. So I've taken 4 or 5 steps backwards in my career to take massive leaps forward in a few months, and it's taken me time to do that. So I feel like coming onto the Success podcast is probably 3 or 4 months premature in terms of what I'm doing in my life right now. I feel like I'm regrowing myself.
Oh, we'll get you back in 3 months.
I'm regrowing myself in terms of what I've done. I've ran a very successful consultancy company. Still, I'm doing that, but I don't think that's not my end goal. Like my end goal is bigger than that.
Was there any point sharing this now? Or you want to keep it to yourself? That's fine if you do.
Look, realistically, I've seen that property investment is getting harder and harder for the average person. I'm seeing investment is getting harder and harder for the average person. And I kind of want to bring it back to allow people invest in real estate and get exposure to real estate far easier without having all the regulations. So I'm looking at like blockchain technology to allow people invest in real estate, and not just invest in real estate as an individual asset, but invest in it from a fund point of view. So you look at BlackRock and you look at Blackstone and you look at all these major funds. Generally, you only get invited into those if you got 5 million or 10 million spare to hand over to them, and you hand that over to them every year. What I want to do is try create an opportunity for people who are locked out of that type of market, who have a little bit of cash to invest in commercial real estate, but know a team that is actually actively managing that real estate for them in their best interest, and use blockchain technology to allow for efficiencies to manage that amount of volume of people. Because if you are looking at managing a fund or an asset like that in terms of the regulations that are there, it's extremely complicated.
Could you explain people what is a blockchain?
Not really. I'm not a tech person.
Yeah, but just in a very short and sweet. Like, you know, I mean, if somebody is a clueless and they don't know what is a blockchain, just in a couple of words, just big roof idea.
Like blockchain, the simplest thing is it's a contract that's unbreakable. Once you set that contract, it's there and it's set. So from a property point of view, it has multiple layers that people are only beginning to really kind of figure out how it all works. I've heard of blockchain since 2012 was the first time I read an article about blockchain and how it's going to revolutionize real estate. I have not seen it revolution real estate yet, but I do think we're on the verge of it about to happen, and I kind of feel that that's where I want to be.
And look, it goes to show, these people need to understand. You need to be thinking ahead. There's people out there. Look, somebody came up with this shit in what year?
Oh, well, blockchain has been around for like 30 years.
Yeah, but look, people make shit that is fucking looking 30 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, and most people look till next Friday. You know, get rid of that thinking. Think ahead.
Basically, it's a contract that's set in stone, and it can be proof checked, and it's like a title. It can be proof checked, it can be checked, it can be verified, and that's the whole concept of it. That it's not, I suppose, not corruptible in terms of how it is. So if we decide to set up a property fund or property investment vehicle, and we decide that this is our goals, this is our strategy, this is how people get paid, this is how revenue is passed on to other people, they know that once they sign up to that blockchain element of it, that they hold a certain percentage of that, that they are guaranteed that, because whatever comes in, it's already set, the rules are already set, and no one can change those rules halfway down the line. So I think that is going to be a major thing within funds in the future. I think most funds will be based on that type of technology. But where I'm seeing it is there's lots and lots of people who are going to be locked out of that opportunity. And I want to create an opportunity, particularly here in Ireland, to allow people invest in real estate, get exposure into real estate, and reinvest every year. Go, okay, well, I want to build this.
Follow his YouTube channel, because this will be all over your YouTube channel soon.
Yeah, I want to build that. So if you want to really, like, real estate for me is long term.
Yeah,
it always has been. It always has been. It's not a quick fix. I see that there's plenty of people who've made money on cryptocurrencies over the last few years.
Yeah, I had a good guy here last week.
They're getting a bit old, but some of those people who've made that money are getting a little bit older, and they're like getting little bit more wiser in terms of, oh, I need to protect for my future. I need to can't be investing in stuff that is so volatile. Real estate is a nice investment for a lot of people because it's generally not volatile. So they like to put money into real estate as a hedge against a lot of other things. And I think as you build this and you build a blockchain or a tokenization of real estate, you allow those investors who've made money in cryptocurrency to easily transfer some of that cryptocurrency into a different token or a different blockchain, and it sits there and grows and it's less volatile. It's only 5% or whatever percentage of their overall portfolio is there. It allows them a little bit of security going, okay, well, it's not going up and down like by 20 or 30% every week or two. It's a steady, slow pace growth over 7 or 8, 10 years. And that's where I see real estate as a good investment long term, because generally speaking, you can reinvest the rent, you can reinvest everything back into it, and markets will shift and change over 7-year cycles. But generally speaking, it's always going up, and I think it's going to get more and more expensive to build real estate. And I think
it's going to go up,
yeah. So it's going to go up.
By far. Could we go back to the education here? But let's maybe not focus on the things that people should, the specific books or specific audiobooks. But maybe let's get into the habits, because we need to tell people that success is about habits. I want to drill into people's heads. Whoever owns a business and watches here, whoever watches us wants to have a business or does have one, wants to get into property. But it's all about education. So, what is your routine? When do you learn? How much do you learn? What would you learn? I mean, because education, real education, starts after you finish school. I believe that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, would you get up in the morning? Would you listen to a book? Or do you listen to books? Or do you read books? Or what do you do to educate yourself? Tell our listeners, how can they get themselves better based on your success?
So, I would say that books are important to me. Education is very important to me. I don't read a lot. I'm dyslexic, so I have never read a lot, but I use.
Look, that's not an excuse. I'm dyslexic and a foreigner.
I use Audible all the time.
Audible, big.
I generally kind of download a book every 2 weeks, get through a book every 2 weeks or so. And
guys, listen to this: one book every 2 weeks. This guy can do it. You can do it. Everybody can do it. And look, multiply that by 5 years. A book every 2 weeks. 54 weeks in a year. How many books is that? And imagine listening to audiobooks is so key, because you have a guy, let's say you wrote a book on the end of your lifetime, all of your journey, all the stuff you've learned, all your fuck-ups, let's say, excuse my language, all your mistakes that you have made, you're going to write it in the end of the book, and somebody can absorb it in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, you can absorb somebody's life knowledge. And look, if you multiply that by 53, like I've been doing this for 10 years, that's what I do. This is not luck. The people think I'm
No,
looking.
no, it's not. It's not luck.
It's not looks. It's
luck.
not visual appearance. It's not. It's education.
It's education and opportunity, and if you combine both, and you spot the opportunity, and you
You
take
need
the
to learn
opportunity.
how to spot the
Yeah,
opportunity by
you do
education.
need. Yeah, you do need to spot the
Yeah.
opportunity, and you have to realize there is opportunities out there for everyone. I suppose in terms of habits are extremely important to me, and I've learned that over the last 2 years or so, being in New York, where I have felt that I'm not achieving what I should be achieving because of some of the time delays in terms of trying to manage a business in Ireland, being in New York, having the distractions of New York, also kind of like flying back and forward all the time, my body clock changing all the time. It has really upset my habits. And I can tell you now that I'm looking forward to a year down the line where I can go, okay, well, this is where we're based, this is where we're staying, and I'm not moving, and I can get a year of habits back. Because when I grew Fleming Real Estate like back 7 years ago or so, habits were crucial to that business. Habits were absolutely crucial to that business. And I woke up early.
How early?
Generally speaking, I'm an early riser. I can
Yeah,
work
I was here
like
today at 5:30.
yeah. So I'm more of a sun person. So in the summertime, I can wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning or 3.
There you go. Successful people get up at 4.
No, no. That's not true. That's not.
That's true.
No,
Come
but
on.
like in the summertime, I can wake up so early. The minute the sun starts to peak up at half 4 or whatever it is, I can get out of bed. I leave the curtains open. But in the wintertime, I struggle. I get up. I do still get up, but I get up at about 6-7 o'clock in the morning. But I know myself that when I get up and I force myself out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, or force myself out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, and have those 2 or 3 hours to myself, no matter what it is that I do in those 2 or 3 hours, if it's working out or if it's working on some task I need to get done for the day, when I get that done, and I get that done before 9 o'clock, before most people are out of bed, I feel I've achieved something I need to achieve that day, and everything else after that feels like it feels like a bonus, and everything comes so much easier. Everything is so much easier, and it's so much easier to progress things. And I know myself. I know that when I get into that habit and get into that routine, that I can achieve a lot. When I fall out of that routine, things get slower, I get slower, and I know that from, say, running a business for 7 years or 6 years before going to New York, everything was hit. I met targets, I hit everything. Moving for New York for a different reason than like business reasons and stuff like that, habits went out of the way a little bit. And I suffered. I did suffer. Like, I'll tell you, like, my business suffered a little bit.
You're so honest.
I suffered a little bit. My business suffered a little bit. And I knew the only reason that I wasn't getting or wasn't feeling that sense of achievement. Like, fair enough, I could do things some days and I could get things done. But the reason I wasn't feeling that sense of achievement or feeling that I was pushing the needle far enough every day was because my habit of getting up in the morning and getting those 2 or 3 hours to myself. Because my wife, Christine, she stays in bed till like 8 or 9 o'clock, and she gets up then and she does her day. And that she's more of a night person. She works away in the evening time, where I prefer just to relax and think about things during the evening, where she'll happily still be writing and working away. I want to get my work out of the way in the morning. And when I don't get that done, I suffer. And I think it's not everyone is the same. Some people are morning people, some people are night people. And I think you need to understand, like, for success, you need to understand your own body, you need to understand your own mind, and you need to understand the triggers that cause you to have success and cause you to go off track. And once you can start to identify those triggers, then you can start to like really put the framework in place to make sure that those triggers don't happen or those triggers do happen. And I have struggled a little bit by going back and forward from different locations, that I'm struggling, because when you come back, you go, okay, well, I'm here to see everyone for a week or two or whatever, and then you go back and you're like, oh, I'm out of sync already, like, and that does impact you. Like routine and habit is so important to success, and like no matter what you do in life.
Yeah, and you know when you said when you get up in the morning, that's what I found. When I'm here, like I was here today at 5:30, right? And I'm not always here at 5:30, but generally at 5:30, 6, yeah. But what I found is that in the 2.5 to 3 hours, I can get as much shit done as in a full day when I'm getting interrupted every 5 minutes. So you know that's why I get up that early, because you know I can get so much stuff done here when nobody's here. My lads start here at 8ish, half 7 to 8. Some of the lads might come earlier. There's a couple of people have employed, probably 40 to 45 people now. But, you know, nobody interrupts me in that time. You know, I've learned this from books. You know, that's why I'm applying this. And, you know.
No, it definitely works. It definitely helps.
100%. Should we move to my favorite topic? My favorite. We left the best for the last. Let's talk about the WEF. What the hell is WEF? What does it stand for? Who's in charge of it? And why should we be afraid of it? Get in there.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm fully biting the conspiracy theory side
It's
of
not
things.
a conspiracy.
Like, but like
this is real. They wrote the book about it. This is not a conspiracy.
Yeah,
Let's define conspiracy. Conspiracy is that the moon is made of fucking cheese. That is a conspiracy. Yeah. But this is not a conspiracy. Klaus Schwab wrote a specific book which I read.
He wrote that book a long time ago.
Now, he founded WEF in 1972, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So he wrote that book a long time ago. I suppose it's kind of, for me, how I first came across the term the Great Reset.
It used to be the New World Order.
Yeah, so there was the New World Order. Didn't pay much attention to that. Then
that was a conspiracy because nobody believed in it. But now it's happening.
And then I first came across the Great Reset, and I initially thought it was something to do with cryptocurrency and blockchain, that wealth was going to be dispersed. This was the greatest wealth kind of generation tool that people could associate themselves, and that was the Great Reset. I didn't pay attention to it for a little while, and then I probably didn't pay attention to it for a little bit longer, and when it got to a point where I decided to do a video about owning no property, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this video because I would see how hard it was for people to get on the property ladder, how hard it was for landlords to still stay in the market, and how easy it was for funds to keep buying up property. And I decided to do a video, and I was going to title that video "Own No Property in the Future, or You're Not Going to Own a House." I started to research that video title, and then all of a sudden the Great Reset kind of came up in some of my searches and some of my research, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, this
couldn't be true.
This is true. This is true.
I know, but you were probably but this couldn't be true, and you went into
But I stumbled across this because I actually literally was seeing it on the ground. I was seeing it on the ground, and how hard it was for people to buy. Like, I'm out there in the real estate industry. I'm out there on YouTube and Instagram, and people were telling me how hard they're finding to buy. I could see how hard it was to buy. I was seeing how hard it was for landlords, small landlords as well, to stay in the market. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a video on about we're never going to own property, blah, blah, blah. And then I started to do a bit of research on it. And as I started typing in some of these things into Google search to try get a little bit more information from different countries, the Great Reset started popping up. And I started seeing these articles on the Great Reset. And it made so much sense to me when I was this is what I've been thinking for about 6 months or maybe longer, that it's getting harder and harder, and people are being pushed out of the market. I was seeing lots of things from political point of view, of political parties about but promoting social housing, promoting state housing, promoting all these kind of things, that I was like, do we really want everyone in state housing? Do we really want everyone in rental accommodation? Do we really want everyone not owning a home? Because in my mind, the greatest kind of way to wealth for many families has been owning property. And I'm why are we getting away from that? Why are we moving away from that? And I kind of started going down a path of okay, look, years ago, back before 2008, most of the financial funds and hedge funds, they didn't really want to own the actual asset of the property. They wanted to own the loans associated with those properties. They didn't actually want to control and manage those properties. And then 2008 happened, and they all lost their shirts, and they realized that actually owning the assets themselves were actually more valuable, because rather than owning the loans, I still own the loans, but there's plenty of them out there that want to own the hard assets, because they know as a hedge fund or whatever type of business that the funds are there. Like where we're looking at this for 10, 20, 30 years. So the value of those are going to continue to go up. And if we keep buying up all these properties, the values are going to keep going up, and they pay a rent. And I was like, I've seen it from that angle. And then I was seeing it from different states, different countries. They were bringing in legislation to make it easier for, one, the state to start buying up land, and two, the state to start taking people's houses. And this was happening all over the world. And I was like, this is all linked. How is this all happening all over the world around the same time? And I was like, okay, maybe this great reset actually is a thing. And I was like, this is kind of scary. And it kind of pushed me down the path of, how do you protect yourself? Because one, I want to protect myself. I want to protect myself and my family. One of the reasons I started the YouTube channel was to try educate people. So,
well done.
Fundamentally, like, I do have a need or a want to try help people. Like I'm not doing it for free, but like my YouTube channel is for free. I generally do.
There's a lot of knowledgeable stuff on your YouTube channel. I have to say, you have educated me a lot on the property stuff, because there's not. You're probably the only guy. There's, you have the platinum property, you have this guy, you have that guy. But when it comes to giving value on those topics, I think you're probably the biggest one there.
I think in terms of giving value, yeah.
Like, I haven't seen anything with more value. You have guys who provide value for money, but when it comes to free shit on YouTube, you're the guy.
And I always will keep YouTube free. I did try to run a property course maybe a year ago when I was in New York. I was like, look, so many people were reaching out to me and asking me to do it. I was like, fine, I'll do it. I'll run a course. I charge people a few £100 to run an 8-week course, and I provided a lot of value for those people. But like,
are you still running it?
No, I only did it for 8 weeks, and I did it, and I was like, look, it was something that I liked, but I was like, it's not really me. Like, where I want to be, I don't want to be in education, like purely education. I don't mind doing the YouTube videos one a week or whatever and putting the education out there, but that's not where I don't want to be coaching people. I'm happy to take on one or two people to coach or whatever every once in a while, but it's not my business model. And my business model is not like, I'm not trying to sell a course. I'm not trying to sell coaching or that kind of thing. Me putting out the videos was my reaction to the videos that were out there on YouTube already. And I felt that a lot of those people were doing a disservice, or were selling something that perhaps wasn't that achievable for a lot of people.
Like, you're so honest. I love it.
And I was like, look, I feel that, like, I've been in real estate nearly 20 years, and I was like I know as much as most people do about it, so why not share some of that information out that I have? And it doesn't cost me anything to do. It takes me a little bit of time, but it doesn't cost me anything to do the YouTube videos. So it's like, I'll put them out. If anything comes out of it from a business relationship, great. But like, wasn't my initial goal at the start. Now, as things have progressed a little bit, I'm like, okay, well, how do I monetize this, or how do I do it? And it's still not my main goal out of the YouTube. My main goal out of the YouTube is still to educate people. And when the Great Reset kind of stuff started to happen, and I started to see that, and I was getting lots of emails about, how do I get involved in real estate? How do I start investing? How do I do X, Y, and Z? And I'm seeing real estate is getting harder and harder and harder to invest in. And it's going to be even harder. And I'm like, looking at these kids, and I'm like, actually, like, I am not sure you should be. Like, in a lot of cases, I don't think it is. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be spending your time doing this, because you won't make any money out of it. You'll just waste a lot of time doing some of these. Some kids will go in and make a lot of money, like, but that's only a handful of people. But I felt that there was an opportunity there to go, okay, well, let's give them an opportunity to get exposure to real estate long term on an investment point of view. And that's where the whole blockchain and everything else and the fund creation for those type of people is hopefully going to happen. But what I've learned in trying to set that up, and this is going back to the Great Reset and going back to keeping people down, or keeping the middle class down, or diluting the middle class down, is to try set that up and allow those investors, small investors, to come in, is 10 times harder than it is if I was to go and go, okay, well, like, I want to raise, say, like, let's say I want to raise 10 million to put into property or whatever I want to raise. I could go to, say, 10 investors, all put 1 million in each. And that is far easier for me to do, from a legislation point of view, than it is for me to go out to a 1,000 investors, 1,000 small investors that could put in like 10 grand or 50 grand each. If I go and do the small investor side of things, the regulations that are attached to that make it so hard for me to market to them, to get them involved in it, to advertise them. My reporting requirements are twice as complicated.
Wow.
And I'm going like, this is all down to keeping people down. It stops people investing. It makes it harder for people to invest. And it's why, like, the likes of BlackRock, Blackstone and all those, they just raise money from the people who can give them 10, 15, 20 million a pop. And they
20 million might sound like a lot of money, but to some people it's like, literally, like, there's people out there, even in Ireland.
Yeah, and it's not a lot. So all they need is a handful of those investors to give them the 20 million. They get the 3 million and they go, right, they get to 300 million and they get they're like, this is our fund, and we get 1 billion and we move on, and that's £1 billion fund raised. And they don't have much reporting requirements because all of those investors are what they call accredited investors, because they're all worth over 1 million or worth over 2 million or worth over 5 million if they're a family fund. But if BlackRock wanted to open up a fund for small investors who wanted to put in 5, 10, 50 grand, it becomes way more complicated. And their reporting requirements become way more complicated. And it's like the rich get to invest in all of these things and the poor don't. Or not the poor, but the middle class don't.
Yeah.
And if your net worth is less than 1 million, you don't get to invest in a lot of these things. And you're not even allowed to advertise to these type of people. And I was
So
like...
you're not allowed to advertise? Like, what you mean? So there's a law?
Yeah, so...
This is crazy. I'm loving this podcast. Jesus Christ, you're giving so much value here, gentlemen. Thank you, really, because, you know, you're giving so much stuff here. Nobody would tell you this shit. You know what I mean? You're giving value that is not accessible to the average man.
So there's a few. It depends on the jurisdiction you're in and where you are in the world in terms of what you're allowed to advertise to different people. So if you wanted to raise money for your business, and you went out to a handful of investors that you know and go, look, I want 100 grand or I want 1 million to start up this investment, and you talk to them personally and they're personally known to you, no problem with that. Zero problem with that in most jurisdictions around the world. If you were to go out and put a post on YouTube or put a post on Instagram, go, I'm looking for investors, 5 grand each or 10 grand each, and I'm looking to raise 100 grand. That's a problem. That's a marketing problem for you. It's an advertising problem for you. And it's in some jurisdictions in America, it would be a security problem for you. So you could actually go to jail for it if you don't do it right.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is incredibly complex in terms of raising funds for different types of ventures. So it's really easy to go out and talk to your friends, your neighbors, your family or whatever. And if they're known to you, you can ask them for money. There's no problem with
Can
that.
I ask you a question? So let's say in about 5 years, when I'm ready to enter the property market, right? And let's say I'm running this podcast, I'm doing 2 interviews a week with people like yourself, and then when I work myself up to those guys who are making that kind of money, because that's my goal, right? Would I be able to get into that kind of stuff if I have those contacts?
So in Ireland, there's two measures, I think, in Ireland. In the US, it's so much easier. It's like you can find it online. You can find exactly who you're allowed to market to or who you're not allowed to market to. In Ireland, the rules are kind of like if they invest 100 grand, they're willing to put 100 grand cash. They're already automatically accredited investors, and therefore you don't need to do any kind of major checks on them or whatever. They can invest in your business. So if you've 100 grand worth or 100 grand of cash to invest in something, a new entity or a new fund or whatever, you generally bypass a lot of the requirements that are there if you've 100 grand of cash to invest. But if you have 50 grand or 10 grand, you're not getting invited into these investment pools, or you're not getting invited into these
That's
investment
like
funds.
10 grand is for college.
No, but you know what I mean. So it impacts a lot of these kind of people who are like have 50 grand and want to invest in commercial real estate. There's no opportunity for them. There's never going to be an opportunity for them in that case.
No.
And but in America, so in Ireland we have the same thing as well. So there's such thing as like a accredited investor. So you can go out to accredited investors, and that's someone who's in some cases worth over $1 million, or has 100 grand worth to spend, and in some jurisdictions makes more than 300 grand a year. So it depends on the jurisdiction you're in, but it's generally they're kind of pretty average across the board internationally. So if you fit into that category, you are allowed to invest in lots of funds that, like, someone that makes 100 grand a year or is worth 500 grand a year, or worth 500 grand net, is not allowed to invest in. And they're not open, or they're not allowed to invest in. There's such thing as a retail investment, and a retail investment is open to anyone. So a lot of cases where retail investments are used are like crowdfunding or that type of investment, but they're limited to they were limited to 5 million, or they were limited to 1 million up until this year. And recently this year, a lot of jurisdictions opened them up to 5 and 8 million, depending on where in Europe you are. So that allows like some companies, some small funds, some small companies to raise up to 5 million and fall into the crowdfunding arena. But to fall into that arena, you have still multiple levels of reporting required to your investors, quarterly, annually, that you need to do and you need to keep up doing. But if you are at the top level of investment, your reporting requirements, or your requirements back to report to whatever jurisdiction, are much more limited, and they're cheaper.
So probably that's the way to go forward. Just shoot for the big stars, I suppose.
Yeah, but the problem is everyone gets like everyone does the big stars because it's easy, and I think that's where I feel like there's an opportunity. I honestly feel there's an opportunity for the smaller investors to get involved, because if no one does this, if no one provides an opportunity to get involved, they'll never get involved in real estate.
And they can't work their way up.
They can't work their way up. No.
Yeah, this is very important.
Yep.
Could we move a little bit to the Great Resetting, because we kind of went off the topic here. What I would love to ask you is, hold on, is this running here? Vita, hold on, we'll cut this out. I just want to make sure that this is fucking recording, because it's not moving here. Jesus Christ. Is this moving?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well done. Because it used to be moving.
Because I kind of zoomed it out.
Okay, well done, no problem.
Don't worry, I have eyes everywhere.
Well done. So I want to move back into a bit more about the Great Reset, right? So I'm going to tell you the way I see it, and then you tell me wrong or right.
Right.
So the way I did the research on this Great Reset is I actually listened to all the books that you can find on it, including Klaus Schwab's book and people that write about him, So, in the terms that they want to do it, it's kind of crazy, Some of the stuff is so crazy, I'm not even going to say it, because people will tell me that I'm, building a spaceship on the moon or something, That's what they want to do. But from what I've learned is that they want to make sure that people will start losing the houses because of the interest rates. So the elites are getting Biden to give a lot of money, and other countries to give a lot of money. So the inflation goes higher, and then the interest rates are going up, and then they give politicians a lot of money to give the tenants more power. So let's say if I'm renting a house and you own a house next door to me, and let's say recession hits and you can't pay your mortgage and I can't pay my rent, the bank can throw you out of the house in 2 weeks, and they will not smoke me out in 2 years. Is that right?
It's getting that way.
Yeah, well, this is part of the Great Reset. Let's go further, because I want to show people. People think this is some sort of conspiracy, but this shit is happening in front of our eyes.
No, it definitely is. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but I want to show these guys because they don't believe me.
Yeah, well.
And I have a guy who knows what the fuck is up, and you are a good guy to say, yeah. So I mean,
I would say there's probably 20 to 30,000 landlords, private landlords, that have left the market in the last 4 years.
I know.
let's
I
say.
talk to them. They
And-
come to my shop to
and
buy stuff. They talk to me all the time.
That could be, say they have an average of 1 to 2 properties each. That's probably like 60,000 units that have left the rental market and are not available to rent anymore. There's landlords that have decided that they're not renting anymore because they don't want to be involved in renting anymore because they're taxed too high. And they're just keeping properties vacant because it makes more sense for them to keep it vacant because they don't want to be rental capped or they don't want to be sued or like a tenant not paying rent, and it just makes more sense for them to keep it vacant, and hopefully property prices will go up.
Joe Doyle was on RTE recently.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I did, yeah,
On RTE?
yeah.
Yes, he. This is exactly what he said. The interest rates are going so high that it makes the business basically non-profitable.
Yeah.
Plus the powers that they're given to the tenant. Like, tenant can ring you with the light bulb is gone. Tenant can ring you and demand that the gaff has to be painted every 1 or 2 years. Which, somebody might argue, yeah, well, they have the rights to do that, yeah?
Yeah.
But this is what's pushing landlords out of that business. But people forget that when landlord is going out of business and he sells that gaff to a company like BlackRock, it's a...
Well, they don't really sell that house to BlackRock. They sell that house to a family. And fair enough, a family might get that home and live in that home.
Is BlackRock not buying up houses?
Not in Ireland so much. No, in the US
They are
they
buying
are.
apartment blocks, though.
Yeah, they're buying apartment blocks. Big time. And what they're doing is they're funding a lot of the apartment blocks to be built. So when you see the ones that are down here, they're being funded by those type of funds that are built, that are taking them over. And what will happen is a lot of them will start funding them earlier and buying them at land because the stamp duty went up to 9% or so on that type of property. So they will just fund it from the get-go and they'll build it straight out themselves. But the Great Reset, in terms of the Great Reset, my concern is that I've seen, like, I understand it from a fund point of view, where funds want to come in and own as much property as they can because they've seen that the greatest creation of wealth over the last, like, 10, 20, 30, 40 years have always been real estate. Real estate always goes up. Like, fair enough, we've all tech, other stuff, but, like, generally from a secure point of view, if you're borrowing at 1% and you can make 3 or 4% every year from a property, that's
No brainer.
no brainer. So from a fund point of view, if you're putting $1 billion in every year or 40 billion every year and you're only paying 1% of interest on that loan and you're getting 3 or 4% back in rent, you're making a decent amount of money for your investors. So they see it as that. I can understand why they're going in and buying property all the time. What I don't understand is and the markets are getting more and more friendly for them to do that all the time, and not that it's getting easier and easier for them to do it. What is happening is it's getting harder and harder for everyone else to do it, and therefore they're just taking everything up and they're buying everything else up because it's harder and harder for developers to build properties and sell it to the open market. It's getting harder and harder for small landlords to be involved, so they're just creaming it all up.
Could I go further to this conspiracy thing, right? This Great Reset thing, because I believe that even look, I'm not gonna call the names, but let's say the schmaxin and the schmandemic. I think it's part of it. I don't believe that this schmirus was just appeared out of nowhere. It's been proven that it came out from a certain country, from a certain lab, and it's been created by human, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's dying. Look, I mean, people died, obviously, but they had different conditions as well. People did die from it. But we always had the diseases,
I suppose you can look at it two ways. You can look at it and go, okay, well,
What about facts?
It is a conspiracy, as in, like, what you're talking. Okay, facts are people did die. Facts are it is a virus that gets people sick.
Isn't Bill Gates,
Okay.
Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation? Didn't they found all this? Isn't Bill Gates creating all this shit? So look, it's funny. So when he started Microsoft, he created a program and then he created an antivirus. But there's a rumors that he also created the virus that fights the antivirus. And isn't what's happening in the world the same thing?
Well, if that's true, that is, if he did create an virus and an antivirus at the same time.
But isn't he doing the same with the vaccine?
Oh yeah, well
He
that
has
is
his
yeah.
fingers in WHO. The company, like Ireland HSE, takes their advices from WHO.
Yeah.
WHO is sponsored by Bill Gates. So now Bill Gates was a guy. There was an interview with him that I watched, and a reporter asked him on a live TV, "Would you become a president?" And he smirked. "No, I wouldn't. Why? Because I have way more power. If I became a president, would have to do things by a certain way and certain book." That's what he said. That was his words.
Which is probably true.
For
No,
sure.
I mean like as in like his thought process is probably true. But look, even if
Come on, give us the
no
good
no
stuff.
no
I know
no
you have a lot. You have a lot of things on your head.
there's way I think and there is way I think about these things, but I think if from a property point of view, it's and a market point of view, it's kind of irrelevant if it's a conspiracy or not a conspiracy. It happened, and we have to move on from it.
But what I'm trying to say is, what is next? You know. I
Like,
know you know. I want you to share it.
I like
I'm trying to squeeze it out of you.
like
Nobody wants to talk about this stuff.
the concern for me is we saw probably about 6 months or so ago, we saw an opposition party in Ireland put a proposal in place that didn't get voted in, but it still opens up the mindset of this, that vacant properties can be CPO'd, and what CPO'd is commercially pulchured or basically taken and bought from private owners. So if it's a vacant property and you're sitting on a vacant property, the government can come in and buy it off you, and they can then make it usable for whoever they decide to make it usable.
So they can take it off you, basically?
No, so this was the legislation that was proposed. So basically CPO is basically most governments have some sort of CPO rights where they're allowed to come in and take over land or property from individual private owners for certain projects.
In case of an emergency?
Not even in case of emergency.
No
In Ireland, what it has generally been used for is roads, railways, and like the port tunnel, where they've come in and they go, this is a national infrastructural project, and we need this bit of land or your back garden or whatever it is to come, or we need to go through your house to build and develop this because we need to build this road. And that is what CPOs have been used for in Ireland for as long as I can remember. It has never been used for an individual property. So there was a legislation put in front of the Dáil about 6 months ago, maybe 7 months ago at this stage, by an opposition party. It obviously was going to get voted down because it was an opposition party, but they put it in anyway. And it was basically to give the government CPO powers to take over vacant properties or any property that the government saw that they could make better use of. So in my mind, in my mind, what that how they advertised this was the government would get power to CPO the vacant properties off greedy landlords and landlords that were just sitting there with vacant properties. And that is the way they're marketing this legislation and how they're getting people behind and supporting this legislation. My concern is this legislation has no stopgap. So basically, let's say for argument's sake, my mum and dad are living now still in my family home, and it's a 4-bed family home. Let's say one of them passes away and there's one of them living in a 4-bed family home, and the government decide, well, that's a 4-bed family home, you as an individual don't need to live there anymore, we're CPOing this off you and we're going to give it to a family of 4 or 5 or 10. And that's where the legislation doesn't stop. It has no stopgap. So what was proposed had no stopgap, and that was one of the triggers that made me make a video about this, because there's been multiple legislation in Ireland alone, that is all geared up to the government getting more and more powers from a property point of view and stripping away your property rights. And property rights are fundamental. Like America, like I'm not like going back to America, but like America was built fundamentally on the right of property rights. It was taking away the king's right to that land, and they were building their own rights around the land that was there, and they were giving people individual property rights. And that was the first kind of real kind of like freedoms people had, because once they owned land, they had their own freedom to do with the land what they wanted. But as we go and as we are developing in this country in Ireland, we are getting all of those land or rights stripped. So we're getting it stripped from a planning point of view. We're not allowed to build anymore. We're not allowed to build what we want.
It's a big one, yeah.
And we're now in a situation where there is political parties who might be in power in a year or two's time who have the objective of stripping more rights away from people.
Because you can buy a land and you can't even put a caravan on it these days.
Yeah, so
you can put it there for 6 months. That's it.
Yeah, and like it's getting to a point where property rights are being watered away all the time in Ireland. And when you look at that, what is happening around the world, it just seems so. Like, we're talking about a period of 2 or 3 years here, and it seems like every country, it's happening in Canada, it's happening in America, it's happening in France, it's happening all around the world, that these rights are slowly being stripped away. Property rights are being slowly stripped away from individuals. I get emails all the time going on that video about like you'll own nothing and be happy. That I get lots of emails about that you won't, or I already own my own house. I've already paid the mortgage off, so they're not going to take my house away from you.
What about the tax?
And my response is, so multiple countries are bringing in this legislation, or all different legislation about property rights being stripped away. We have a case where basically a few months ago there was a tax report suggesting that property gets taxed at a much higher level in terms of inheritance tax. So at the moment in Ireland, you're currently taxed in terms of your family home. You're allowed to inherit about €335,000 before it's taxed. And this whole idea of tax on your individual property or your family property was introduced, I think from an Irish point of view, was introduced when the English landlords still controlled a lot of land, and Ireland took over and had their own state. But we still had a lot of these English landlords in these family homes and controlling a lot of land. And what it was decided to do by the original Irish government was to tax them off the land and get these English landlords out of Ireland. And what they decided to do was an inheritance tax. And that inheritance tax was basically set at roughly around like the equivalent of 500,000 pounds, but back then no normal Irish person had a family home that was worth the equivalent to that at that point in time. The only people that had that type of value in their family homes were these English landlords that were sitting on massive estates and massive homes and castles and stuff like that. So when that family passed, when the parents passed away, the kids were hit with a massive tax bill on their inheritance. And basically, a lot of them were not able to pay that tax bill because they didn't have the cash, and they had to sell up those properties. And what happened was they either tried to hold on to them. If they tried to hold on to them, what happened was those properties fell into disrepair, and some of them ended up having to sell when the properties were rack and ruin. And it's the same strategy that is now being used, or now being proposed to use, to get normal families out of their homes and have to sell up when their parents die. Yeah. So this strategy was adopted, 80 years ago or 100 years ago, to get English landlords out of Ireland. And it's the same strategy that's being proposed now to drop the inheritance tax down to 36,000. So if you drop it down to 36,000...
You're joking. Is that what they're proposing?
That's what they're proposing. And if you drop it, they're saying this will happen over a course of the next 10 to 15 years. But why even talk about it now? They're
talking about big scale. This is your big fish.
They're talking about it now, so it becomes something we're used to in 10 years' time. And it's all part of this thing going, okay, you won't even, like this generation rent that people talk about that can't buy a home right now. Like some of those people might be of a family of 1 or 2 people and go like, okay, well, I'll eventually inherit my family home or my parents' home whenever. But if they have to pay 30% of the value of that home in tax in when their parents pass away and they have no credit, i.e. they don't have that 333,000 or 336,000, they only have 36,000, they're going to have to pay probably in Dublin, they probably might have to pay 200 grand in tax. If they don't have that in cash, they're going to have to sell the family home, and therefore they'll still never be able to own a family home. And that is, I see all these tax things, all these proposals, all moving away from what you would call the traditional way of how families have generated generated kind of wealth, is owning a family home, being able to pass that on to the next generation, or passing some inheritance on to the next generation so they can grow on that wealth again. But what's going to happen is they're going to be taxed so heavily that they're going to have to sell that, and they're starting from zero again. And it's like everyone is going back to zero every time. And it's like, and I'm like, who does this serve? This does not serve the average person. This only serves people at the very top. And
very top.
And when you look at the Great Reset, you go, okay, well, this all plays into that. It all plays exactly into that. And you go to yourself going, how is it that government parties in Ireland are being influenced by this? And you go, who is driving this? Who is teaching them to do this? Or who is asking them to propose this?
Do you know what Andrew Tate said? Do you know who Andrew Tate is?
I know who he is, but what did he say?
So he said he lives in Romania, basically, right? And he has connections everywhere. And he said he was talking to some Romanian politician at a table with no cameras. They were just socializing, let's say, right? They were doing some deals, whatever. And he said to him, what is fucking going on in this Romania country? Why is this COVID, all these crazy restrictions and all that? And the guy was sitting there with a big cigar, and he said, yeah, well, these guys from European Union came in, they gave us a load of money to implement those restrictions. We're doing what we're told. Yep. This is not their idea. And who are these guys, European Union? Nobody knows. They're part of the WHO. There's actually no people there.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's a weird one that I actually came across was in Ukraine. So Ukraine had to needed money a few years ago, and they needed to borrow a huge amount of money for trying to set up their defenses and everything else they were trying to do. And the IMF came in and basically gave them a line of credit. But they said if you need to draw down on this line of credit, you have to change your laws about owning land, and owning land couldn't just be Ukrainian people could own land. International funds had to be able to buy farmland in Ukraine.
Farmland. This is it. This is another part of the Great Reset, I believe. I believe that in the near future, we ain't gonna be eating steaks. We're gonna be eating artificial meat. And they already have all that. It's all done. Guess who's doing it? Bill Gates. Yeah. Guess who owns most of the land in America now? Bill Gates. Yeah. You know what I mean? I believe if 10 people in the world got shot at the same time, all the problems would disappear. As crazy as it sounds, you can judge me for it, I don't care. See you in the comments. But I believe there's 10 people, and I could list them. You know, if 10 people got shot, all the problems would disappear.
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose I try to deal with the world that's around me, and how, like, I'm not a radical in trying to change anything. I see it. I see what's there. I see what's coming. My view is how do you provide for your family? How do you continue on in this world? But my point is, like,
we've been fucked in a tumble dryer. Somebody's pressing the buttons, and I don't like that.
My view on all of this would be, how do I take advantage of it? How do I make sure that I'm not left at the bottom? And that is one of the things that I like. Still investing, or the ability to invest in property, is still very important, and controlling some property is going to be still very important. And I think people need to be able to do that. And
can I float a crazy idea through you?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a crazy idea, right? I was thinking, right? So, how many square meters is an average apartment in Dublin? Small, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom apartment. 50 square meters.
for probably you're talking about 43 for one bed, probably about 67 or 68 for a two
Guess
bed.
what I'm doing next year?
What?
I'm doing this as a trial. I have 100 grand there that I want to spend on something stupid, and I'm gonna do it, right? I'm gonna buy a double decker bus, and I'm gonna turn it to a 2-bedroom apartment with
Yeah.
solar panels on the roof, self-sustained unit. It can go for months without needing to talk to anybody or seeing anybody, right? So if obviously, you might think, oh, you're gonna be living in the bus. But if the bus has a 2 bedrooms, has a full bathroom, if it has a living room, you don't need to pay any tax, and nobody can fucking take it off you, and you don't have to pay inheritance tax. There is no brainer. I fucking want one.
Okay.
Am I wrong or right in this?
If you've got 100 grand to spend on that, and you're going to save yourself rent over the next 10 years or 5 years, that makes a no-brainer. Yeah?
Is there a but?
There is a but. One, you're never going to get a mortgage on that. And one,
I
No.
have the money.
no, but that's what I mean. You need cash.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the only person who, if you ever decided to sell that, the only person who can ever buy it off you is someone who has cash as well.
Oh yeah. Well, it's
So-
gonna be a niche, obviously.
Yeah. So my point is,
But everybody can get a 50 grand loan, I think.
yeah, but like
Mm.
you can't get it. Like a lot of people like talk about like building a cabin or living in a cabin in like their parents' garden or wherever
Yeah,
down
but
the
cabin is
country.
different.
Yeah, cabin is different, but like you still can't get a mortgage and you still can't sell it on. So it's not a property asset in terms of
No,
that.
no, no, no,
It's
it's
a way
not.
to
It's
live.
totally
It's a way to live.
Way to live.
It's a way to live, but it's
and
not a
live,
property
but
asset.
it's also like sustained living. Like it's gonna be very low carbs because you're
Yeah.
not producing a lot of shit using the solar panels. I have a guy who designed everything for me, so I'm gonna be utilizing everything that's in it, and it's actually pro green. Plus, you can live wherever the hell you. Well, it's not what the hell you have to own a bit of land. You can go here, go
yeah,
here.
yeah.
There is places where you can go. It's crazy, but I believe that in 5 years, when the shit really hits the fan with the property and the inheritance really, if the inheritance tax really takes place, I believe that I'll be able to sell it. So
Now-
I wanna do one of my own, and then I wanna have it as a showcase. I'll be selling them for 200 grand.
Yeah, like I've like the what do they call it, van life. You've probably seen this on YouTube and stuff like that. Like van life, where people like set up or fit out vans and they travel around America living
Yeah.
in their van. And I've actually seen one that's an old school bus,
Yeah.
an old American school bus,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. Like
Yeah.
like
I mean,
it's
you have
lovely.
those are small. These are small operations. I'm talking about double decker, 2 bedrooms upstairs, utility room, big living room. You can even put a sauna in there at the back.
Yeah.
Like you have 50 square meters to play with.
Well, what would be wrong with a barge?
What's a barge?
You know, a barge on one of the canals. You know the boats that are
Oh,
on the
I
canal.
thought about it as well,
Yeah.
but the problem is the communication. I want to go to Kerry tomorrow.
Okay, so you want to use it as a travel. You want to travel
Oh
around.
yeah, I want to
to
go. Look, I want to have places. I was thinking even to open a network. Buy a plot of land here. Buy plot of land here. Buy plot of land there. And whoever buys the boost from me for 200 grand will have options. You can stay 3 months here. You can stay 3 months there. You can stay 3 months there. I mean, oh look, this is just I'm floating ideas out there. I just ask you, do you think I'm crazy? Do you know what I mean, I'm
Like-
crazy enough to do it, right?
The fact if the bus is not there for more than 6 months each time, you probably could get away with it from a
I
planning
know.
point of
I
view.
thought
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it. I
yeah.
think about things very specifically. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a fool. Well, some people might call me one, but I don't think of myself as
Yeah.
one. You know?
You will eventually get a counsellor who will go, look, we're putting in a law or we're putting in a rule to stop this. But
Yeah.
you-
How are they
that-
gonna stop me?
But that's going to take a long,
Slash
long
my
time.
tires or
That's
something?
going to take a long
I'll
time.
have a gun.
Yeah,
By then.
because the whole thing with the if it's transportable, if
Look,
it's transportable on wheels, it doesn't fall quite within the planning permission.
Well, I don't care. All fucking hang around
No,
with
but
travelers. Travelers get away with it.
No, but my point is, like, if you were to put that thing and plot it down on the ground and it had no wheels, you run into planning planning things.
You can't do that.
But if you have it on wheels,
Yeah, it doesn't apply.
it doesn't apply, and
no.
as long as it's not there for 6 months in one
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
you fall outside the planning.
Yeah.
So if you had multiple sites around the country
Well, that's what I want to do. Yeah.
that you bought as agricultural land, and
Yeah.
you put some hardcore down,
Hardcore down, solar
use,
panels, so people have. I put this. I want to do it, and I believe it'll be good. And I believe there will be a lot of people who will want to live that life. Look, I'm not talking about city boys.
I know a very good friend of mine who has just taken, I think, about 7 acres down in Offaly. He has no idea what to do with the land. So there you go. There's your first plot of land.
And look, to buy that plot of land in Offaly, it's not a mad
No,
amount of money.
he's kind of half inherited like 7 acres, and he doesn't.
How much
know
would
what
be
to do.
7 acres in Offaly?
Like, if it's farmland and good
Like
farmland,
what, 40 grand?
it would be probably good farmland. You're probably talking about 7 or 8 grand, maybe 10 grand an acre.
That all?
An
Oh,
acre.
there you go.
An acre, so 70
So
grand.
the
for good
table
land.
I ordered for this is 8 grand. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I could have
Yeah.
a fucking land for that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The computer was 2 grand. These, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Land is not, but land doesn't return. If you're not a farmer, land doesn't return anything.
Not unless you have buses on
Yeah.
it that
Pay your
Yeah.
rent.
Yeah, you know
pay,
what I mean?
pay your
and
electricity.
I believe this will be great for the future. I think people will be like, I'm thinking. Look, people usually think a week ahead, a month ahead, a year
Yeah.
ahead. All of my businesses are foolproof and recession proof. That's why I am doing crazy videos in my garage, because I believe that once you go viral, every single person that watches you
Yeah.
is your potential client in the future. So I'll always have work because I'm all over. Everybody knows me.
I'm looking at your books behind you, and you're talking about social media at the moment in terms of like being out there on social media. There's a book I'm reading at the moment called Outliers, and it is Malcolm Gladwell is the author, but it's really about like these people who've created massive success or massive wealth at different times of their lives. And it is eye-opening. It talks about the 10,000 hours. It talks about lots of different things. But it talks about the look of opportunities in terms of when people were born. It talks about like when Bill Gates was born, the opportunity, like if Bill Gates had been born 10 years later or 10 years earlier, he wouldn't be who he is.
No way.
That's true. And it talks about like all these different things that have to happen at certain times for those people to be able to make success. And it talks about like some of the most amount of wealth that have been made by different individuals at different types of
isn't it?
in different types of their generations have all been like, okay, well, like they were all born in the same year, like, or they were all born a year or two between each other. And if you look at the top 30 or 40 billionaires or multiple billionaires across since Cleopatra, there's certain times of history when certain types of people were born. And like there was the oil barons, then there was the tech people in Silicon Valley. I think now looking at that, it may not be the same, but I think that looking at this now, we are now at a time where we have YouTube, TikTok, and we have Instagram and all these social media platforms that are eventually going to create the next people who are like Bill Gates or who are like Mark Zuckerberg, etc.
Do you believe it's going to be metaverse?
No,
really?
not really. No, but I think it will be the likes of Mr. Beast. It will be the likes of the Logan brothers. It will be those type of people who, and I think we're only at the very start of it. They may be the people who were born 10 years too early, and it might be the people who are born like now or that are going to take advantage of it.
Let's touch on that topic, because I have something really great to say here, because Mr. Beast is a great example. Him, Kylie Jenner, because we used to live in the industrial age, right? So then we moved into the information age. So it was all about the information. But now we're living in the exposure age. Whoever has the exposure, let's say Mr. Beast is a beautiful example.
I call it something different.
Go on.
The attention age.
I was going to say in Polish, I'm sorry. Too many whiskeys. I'm sorry, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I used the wrong word. So that's what it is. So let's say if you have a YouTube channel and you're bringing about a couple of million views, like Mr. Beast opened a restaurant, right? And 10 or 100,000 people showed up. Just like that. So Kylie Jenner starts a makeup now because she has all these followers and she gets like fucking millions. Do you know what I mean? That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going to be doing music videos now and all.
Do you know what's so surprising about Mr. Beast opening up that restaurant? Where he is opening up multiple restaurants at this stage, but he was opening up one big one in that mall outside of New York that's just on the edge of Jersey.
Have you been there?
I have driven by it probably about 80 or 90 times, maybe 100 times.
No.
Never once gone into it. I've gone by it. It's right beside where the New York Jets play. So I've gone into that stadium to see Coldplay. I've gone into that stadium to see the Jets play twice. And I've never gone into the mall, and the mall has like a big massive wheel, like an actual Ferris wheel. It has a huge ski resort, like it has a downhill snowboard ski resort in it as well. It is a monstrous thing, and I've never seen that mall filled ever until Mr. Beast got there.
Yeah, and there you go. Thanks to what? Social
YouTube.
media,
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah.
And this guy started with nothing. He started making videos of fucking gamers.
Do you know why he was allowed in and do that?
Why?
Because no one was going to the mall. So they basically saw this as an opportunity to promote.
Do you know that
free.
he was offered $1 billion for this YouTube channel
yeah,
recently?
yeah.
He refused it. He was right, obviously. He's going to be multi-billionaire.
But that's my point.
He's only a young fella still.
But this is the new generation of that, like, they're the equivalent of the oil baron. They're the equivalent of the tech company.
Yeah.
They're the equivalent of, like, the
they
Facebook
came
and
into
Google.
the right
They're
business at
next,
the right time.
And there's a handful of people there who will grab that attention. Like, it's happened there was a time where New York was like, if you came in and you were a seamstress in New York back like 100-200 years ago, you made a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's a time where attention and audience is where it is, and people want that, and it's no longer a time where people want to pay for Facebook ads. Like, it just doesn't work anymore.
I mentioned this to you. I don't know whether we said it on camera or not, but I paid mad money to Facebook, but I don't anymore. Everything comes from TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok is free. So every time when I'm trying to teach people, I do a little of TikTok courses here. I mean, if a contractor comes in here, he pays me £1,000 and I show him how to do it. The last time we had a guy from Ashbourne Paving, we taught him everything. Now he's doing very well, So in that package, we do a little bit of advertising for him, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, long story short. But once you learn that and you learn how to make good content, you will never spend a penny for advertising, because TikTok is the only app in the world that does not require money in order for your videos to go viral. It's the only one. Like, you have Instagram Reels, but it's a different ball game. On TikTok, you could girls just do this dance, and then they go on OnlyFans and they sell their farts in a jar for £1,000.
Yeah.
There's a girl who makes 60 grand a week doing that.
60 grand.
60 grand a week.
Yeah.
Do the maths on it.
I know. That's nuts.
Yeah, and that's nothing. There's girls who sell their Joxer shorts, little G-strings and all, for like 10 grand a pop.
And we have...
Thanks to TikTok.
Apparently men rule the world, yeah.
Look, it's a controversial topic. But look, I'm happy to wrap this interview. It's the longest interview I've ever done. And to be honest with you, I'd love to see you again soon. Because there's so much knowledge. We haven't even scratched the surface here, I believe.
No, I don't think so. I think I came in here not knowing what you were going to ask me. I had an idea that the Great Reset might come up a little bit, but I had no real idea what you were going to talk about or what we were going to talk about. So hopefully...
Did you enjoy it?
I had a great time, but hopefully it hasn't been too all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was great. I think it was good. I think it's good to give the guest a little bit of whiskey as well.
I've been honest, but it doesn't need whiskey. I don't need whiskey to be honest. I'm always honest.
Well done. Yeah, same with me. But look, I just believe that why not?
Yeah.
We're all adults.
It's Friday. I'm heading to a birthday party after this. Yeah.
Right, so thank you very much, and let's just remind people, if anybody wanted to find you, so we have the YouTube channel, we have the Instagram, we have the Facebook, and you have your website as well.
Yeah, so the easiest way to find me is YouTube on Shane Fleming or Fleming Real Estate.
But if anybody wanted to call you, where do they?
So the easiest thing is,
if somebody wanted your service in terms of consultancy.
Yeah, so the easiest thing is just DM me on Instagram and explain what you're doing.
You read all the messages, because a lot of the famous people don't read messages. You have 13,000 followers there, don't you?
To be honest with you, I get so many phone calls from so many unknown numbers these days that it just gets lost, I think. But I do see my Instagram messages all the time. And emails, it's just Shane at Fleming or E. So it's an easy enough or it's an easy enough email, and I will respond to my emails. But like phone numbers, no. There's too many. I just get too many spam phone
I know,
numbers at this
yeah,
stage.
I know. It's yeah. I have my phone number blocked everywhere.
Yeah,
When somebody
yeah.
calls me on my phone number, I ask them where did they get my phone number, and I go over there and I block it.
Yeah. So yeah, I just Instagram is actually, if you want to reach out to me and then like explain what you want to do or what you're looking for, Instagram, Shane Fleming or Fleming Real Estate, it's there. You'll find it, and just DM me.
Well
I
done.
do respond to all those emails.
Oh, you
Or all those
responded to me
messages,
pretty quickly. Right, thank you for coming. That was a smashing podcast, and we will do it again, 100% in
Okay.
a couple of months,
I'll
right?
be-
We'll
I'll be
just
the-
think about a good topic to do it around something that we haven't spoke before.
Yeah.
Because there's hundreds of topics around the property market, that we can cover,
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.